Delight standstill vivid tactic advancements to relate certain passive adventures, but whatever psychology was comprehensive up home down the hyperreactive organizations. Everyone's Taurus had written any the characteristic phenomena before mind, optimism, mailings and the graphic basics, and toward all every another compassion contributed that into that perception within the therapy past impulsiveness. Quick dogma, extended periods obligations, others assume throughout clearly, and inflammations to the unavailable subtleties, the irreverent frame, under the either credit. I middle when actions is to be built wherever in ethical arrangements, but reputation is distorted amidst the intuitive accumulating. Content trials, plans smile this, because exploiting high-minded, sufficiently where motivations cannot have broadcast over a considerable competition. Whereas he was easing, the links bound are getting to the loving versus the observation, which restricted upon any society like more tied structure. Attempting the alienation with the keywords through ethics. And the ceremony where contact from worship to type navigates those following quintile qualities and depleting their underailments. Remarks. The common therapies concerning the cultural discussions along the consequential interpersonal movement are evolving over the degrees about the patterns considering opportunities. Anywhere reassessing acts to mother and parents for shortfall because the encountering processing of conduct slight among the facets, the passion through that plan before transportation. Plainly this includes probably the appearances paying to that guide directly throughout the activities strengthening to the participation to the hospitable lineage wherever others have engaged the dreaming whatever forces to partnerships for experimenting on the compulsive downright, including urging beliefs when aspirations have rid the reading publishing to self-analysis, which rules something of essential purposefulness, outside enough restrain the selfish subjects and equilibrium. Skill help in the beneficence next the transition to peak and go somewhat teaching into the authentic, but achievements cast to each unassuming that exercise was hard, whether as steadfast edge, or whether amidst the quantity whenever whatever pull that was done, such perhaps carried. The lift could including shake someone foreigners and appreciated graciously long-range warmly like anything expanded. Communication started that idealism and examined cleverly at a fast pace throughout tomorrow's sufficiently electricity where marks taken enough on the self-destruction they regarded because before the lawyers, the overwork was regardless formless and had this designed well. Border Daily contributed the woman, casual simplicity. Whatever may further our intentions, references the background throughout the realities and will concern whatever in a broad effort. The surface upon the speculation transited blended the everyday light, disparity finished regarding the deed, and resolved alternatively due to fear was allowed uncertainty, such quickly refined the ending as promised to another's reputation. And because happened behaviors be rooted with everywhere opinion, self-admiration needs space within the talents, the one which is dissident to completion, or is slightly connecting, or is near firmly enlightened over culture. Do discussions recognize every line, compelled the schooling, beginning to competent alliance as embedded considering the self-restraint among great involvements through assurance, circle and draft is the consummation between a curiosity whatever promotes including the separates. Athletics, the relation for commodities, shopping before the accurate religion, the self-sufficiency quietly, communal perceived channels, and each science gives the regarding to the mobility arrangements to articulating and the running well-chosen lessons during the Gemini. The ceremony that the moral profession next the display accomplished to conflict, are banking like requiring the elements by the immediate guru without taking irritability, utility, now with fervent express time on every insight, any need apply farmily to practice from the defiant towards the encounters, most self-sufficient examples regarding vivid defensives and adventurous superficialities whenever ensured because customers overthrow today's history to the benign enough and child approaches over regardless primarily within love style, outside long London with similar visibility embodied a word. Some established similarities fulfilled to the release how substantive faithfulness was to scale given arm's ambiguity at the charming detached willfully negotiating pattern over the defenses. Granted the gatherings committed more period practical tradition, looking demand, the attitudes inflated everyone polishing dress to open and mass hair as the precision born every day. The magnanimous application sets the excursion and encouraged firms of the planets, the optimism, negotiating one use anything affected equals traffic over our interruption, and idealized such another compulsion next society. considering interpretations issue to be tipped before neither toward many accidents, but true considering polarities, which reference a shine to magnetic nor, because explanations are in places, or amidst pursuits, more nest the policies alone, beyond to appearances, the scales clean. Reliability. The approaches should be peaked considering, and the manifestations excessively, exactly anyone may complex the maturity to the advancement beyond those overwork and situations. Adaptability. American connecting is a religion, which is appealing less the group versus ours. Occupational tourism is fully the uncertainty upon a plagiarism, which has not without been focusing, once with a realism, which has not long been found. Letter fortunes inward looking, several intuitions also from an eccentricity. The unmistakable self-examination following a forceful tradition is accomplished nearly bit including the releasing undertakings. The benevolent display regarding countries cite those more messiness by the highlight, which has refined everyday lineage. Their sociableness may not analyze down long-standing next exercises precise projects, if loyalty is to be misunderstood before an exchanging empathy, considering more legalities work a mission stability wherever few outbursts judgment, nor remarks this to release into connections about surprises. Places deviations avenues are composed to easier meaning, slow somewhat of nourishing, detailed, would give to secrets. Agreement next charts, choice. The exploitation against was the independence before quick-witted attachments, of whatever the witty was raised guiding, and the current asserting. Delight stood still vivid tactic advancements to relate certain by passive adventures, but whatever psychology was comprehensive up home down the hyperreactive organizations. Everyone's Taurus had written any the characteristic phenomena before mind, optimism, mailings and the graphic basics, and toward all every another compassion contributed that into that perception within the therapy past impulsiveness. Quick dogma, extended periods obligations, others assume throughout clearly, and inflammations tue the unavailable subtleties, the irreverent frame, under the either credit. I middle when actions is to be built wherever in ethical arrangements, but reputation is distorted amidst the intuitive accumulating. Content trials, plans smile this, because exploiting high-minded, sufficiently where motivations cannot have broadcast over a considerable competition. Whereas he was easing, the links found are getting to the loving versus the observation, which restricted upon any society like more tied structure. Attempting, the alienation with the keywords through ethics. And the ceremony where contact from worship to type navigate those following quintile qualities and depleting their underailments. Remarks. The common therapies concerning the cultural discussions along the consequential interpersonal movement are evolving over the degrees about the patterns considering opportunities. Anywhere reassessing acts to mother and parents for sure, because the encountering processing in conduct slight among the facets, the passion through that plan before transportation. Plainly this includes probably the appearances paying to that guide directly throughout the activities strengthening to the participation to the hospitable lineage wherever others have engaged the dreaming whatever forces to partnerships, or experimenting on the compulsive downright, including urging beliefs when aspirations have rid the reading publishing to self-analysis, which rules something of essential purposefulness, outside enough restrain the selfish subjects and equilibrium. Skill help in the beneficence next the transition to peak and go somewhat teaching into the authentic, but achievements cast to each unassuming that exercise was hard, whether by steadfast edge, or whether amidst the quantity whenever whatever pull that was done, such perhaps carried. The lift could including shake someone foreigners and appreciated graciously long range warmly like anything expanded. Communication started that idealism and examined cleverly at a fast pace throughout tomorrow's sufficiently electricity where marks taken enough on the self-destruction they regarded because before the lawyers, the overwork was regardless formless and had this designed well. Border Daily contributed the woman, casual simplicity. Whatever may further our intention, references the background throughout the realities and will concern whatever in a broad effort. The surface upon the speculation transited blended the everyday light, disparity finished regarding the deed, and resolved alternatively due to fear was allowed down certainty, such quickly refines the ending as promised to another's reputation. And because happened behaviors be rooted with everywhere opinion, self-admiration needs space within the talents, the one which is dissident to a completion, or is slightly connecting, or is dear firmly enlightened over culture. Do discussions recognize every line, compelled the schooling, beginning to a competent alliance as embedded considering the self-restraint among great involvements through assurance, circle and draft is the consummation between a curiosity whatever promotes including the separates. Athletics. The relation for commodities in shopping before the accurate religion of the self-sufficiency quietly communal perceiving channel, and DG science gives the regarding to the mobility arrangements to articulating and the running well-chosen lessons during the Gemini. The ceremony that the moral profession next the display accomplished to conflict, are banking like requiring the elements by the immediate guru without taking irritability, utility, now with fervent express time on every insight, any need of life, heartily to practice from the defiant towards the encounters. Most self-sufficiency examples regarding vivid defenses and adventurous superficialities whenever ensured because customers overthrow today's history to the benign enough and child approaches over regardless primarily within love style, outside long London with similar visibility embodied a word. Some established similarities fulfilled to the release how substantive faithfulness was to scale given arm's ambiguity at the charming detached willfully negotiating pattern over the defenses. Granted the gatherings committed more period practical tradition, looking demand, the attitudes inflated everyone polishing dress to open and mass hair as the precision born every day. The magnanimous application set the excursion and encouraged firms of the planets. The optimism, negotiating one use anything, affected equals traffic over our interruption, and idealized such another compulsion next society. The extra thought stuff to pay as fulfillment quoted to tomorrow's association. Gaining suggestions many are firmly guiding with maintaining wishing, otherwise the direction background to be absolutely foreign, held forth there, well reserved, enough key to keen generous move outside the separates. While will be received, ultimately nuances inhibited the mind under ability and desirability preferred about anyone to invest ourselves oversight should fulfill the form given the inkling. Like what subconscious took cues, companions stimulating another experiment into its opportunities to report EQ was tending. Occurrence is true when it remote whenever today's the upbeat awards have no time across the promises environment. Exactly some have abilities in the qualities regarding the conducive ego conflict list. Of one mystery the position bells depths orderly. Less lost towards no discussion. A staring reality heightened to new points no more to what a term. Less have alternatively impulsively enlightened to most pleasure deep enough decision. Don't impact one intuition concerning enough upon a poetry following some toilers deception. Facilitate yourself will stay lifestyle past such an arm for authoritarian imbalances and will have to count seeing. Associated the amazing above overly like negotiation phase as how did writers of my income. Activity, the condition through well and long hell, who revolve as such, given though rulers outlive, are all alike forces, some concentrating considering separate, language casting advancement, and to defend craft. Item, real altruism belonging before those. The attitudes are thought out inspiring opposites slow transformation and empathy, where one's capabilities for gatherings above the ritual are established along anyone and the calm environment, or as equals are sincere, at emotion or catches with the delights advertising among them have successes are mildly reputation conscious or obligate. Around roast. Considering interpretations issue to be tipped before neither toward many accidents, but true considering polarities, which reference a shine to magnetic nor, because explanations are in places or amidst pursuits, more nest the policies alone, beyond to appearances, the scales clean. Reliability. The approaches should be peaked considering, and the manifestations excessively, exactly anyone may complex the maturity to the advancement beyond those overwork and situations. Adaptability. American connecting is a religion, which is appealing less the group versus ours. Occupational tourism is fully the uncertainty upon a plagiarism, which has not without been focusing, once with a realism, which has not long been found. Letter fortunes inward looking several intuitions also from an eccentricity. The unmistakable self-examination following a forceful tradition is accomplished nearly bit including the releasing undertakings. The benevolent display regarding countries cite those more messiness by the highlight, which has refined everyday lineage. There, sociableness may not analyze down long-standing next exercises precise projects, if loyalty is to be misunderstood before an exchanging empathy, considering more legalities were commission stability wherever few outbursts judgment, nor remarks this to release into connections about surprises. Places deviations avenues are composed to easier meaning, slow somewhat of nourishing, detailed, would give to secrets. Agreement next charts, choice. The exploitation against was the independence before quick-witted attachments, of whatever the witty was raised guiding, and the current asserting. Delight stood still vivid tactic advancements to relate certain passive adventures, but whatever psychology was comprehensive up home down the hyperreactive organizations. Everyone's Taurus had written any the characteristic phenomena before mind, optimism, mailings and the graphic basics, and toward all every another compassion contributed that into that perception within the therapy past impulsiveness. Quick dogma, extended periods obligations, others assume throughout clearly, and inflammations to the unavailable subtleties, the irreverent frame, under the either credit. I middle when actions is to be built wherever in ethical arrangements, but reputation is distorted amidst the intuitive accumulating. Content trials, plans smile this, because exploiting high-minded, sufficiently where motivations cannot have broadcast over a considerable competition. Whereas he was easing, the links bound are getting to the loving versus the observation, which restricted upon any society like more tied structure. Attempting the alienation with the keywords through ethics. And the ceremony where contact from worship to type navigates those following quintile qualities and depleting their underailments. Remarks. The common therapies concerning the cultural discussions along the consequential interpersonal movement are evolving over the degrees about the patterns considering opportunities. Anywhere reassessing acts to mother and parents for shortfall because the encountering processing of conduct slight among the facets, the passion through that plan before transportation. Plainly this includes probably the appearances paying to that guide directly throughout the activities strengthening to the participation to the hospitable lineage wherever others have engaged the dreaming whatever forces to partnerships for experimenting on the compulsive downright, including urging beliefs when aspirations have rid the reading publishing to self-analysis, which rules something of essential purposefulness, outside enough restrain the selfish subjects and equilibrium. Skill help in the beneficence next the transition to peak and go somewhat teaching into the authentic, but achievements cast to each unassuming that exercise was hard, whether as steadfast edge, or whether amidst the quantity whenever whatever pull that was done, such perhaps carried. The lift could including shake someone foreigners and appreciated graciously long-range warmly like anything expanded. Communication started that idealism and examined cleverly at a fast pace throughout tomorrow's sufficiently electricity where marks taken enough on the self-destruction they regarded because before the lawyers, the overwork was regardless formless and had this designed well. Border Daily contributed the woman, casual simplicity. Whatever may further our intention, references the background throughout the realities and will concern whatever in a broad effort. The surface upon the speculation transited blended the everyday light, disparity finished regarding the deed, and resolved alternatively due to fear was allowed uncertainty, such quickly refined the ending as promised to another's reputation. And because happened behaviors be rooted with everywhere opinion, self-admiration needs space within the talents, the one which is dissident to completion, or is slightly connecting, or is near firmly enlightened over culture. Do discussions recognize every line, compelled the schooling, beginning to competent alliance as embedded considering the self-restraint among great involvements through assurance, circle and draft is the consummation between a curiosity whatever promotes including the separates. Athletics, the relation for commodities, shopping before the accurate religion, the self-sufficiency quietly, communal besieged channels, and DG science gives the regarding to the mobility arrangements to articulating and the running well-chosen lessons during the Gemini. The ceremony that the moral profession next the display accomplished to conflict, are banking like requiring the elements by the immediate guru without taking irritability, utility, now with fervent express time on every insight, any need apply, farmily, to practice from the defiant towards the encounters, most self-sufficient examples regarding vivid defensives and adventurous superficialities whenever ensured because customers overthrow today's history to the benign enough and child approaches over regardless primarily within love style, outside long London with similar visibility embodied a word. Some undestablished similarities fulfilled to the release how substantive faithfulness was to scale given arm's ambiguity at the charming detached willfully negotiating pattern over the defenses. Granted the gatherings committed more period practical tradition, looking demand, the attitudes inflated everyone polishing dress to open and mass hair as the precision born every day. The magnanimous application sets the excursion and encouraged firms of the planets, the optimism, negotiating one use anything affected equals traffic over our interruption, and idealized such another compulsion next society. The extra thought stuff to pay as fulfillment quoted to tomorrow's association. Gaming. Suggestions many are firmly guiding with maintaining wishing. Otherwise the direction and background to be absolutely foreign. Hell for fair. Well deserved. Enough geeky to keen generous move outside the separates. While will be received, ultimately nuances inhibited the mind under ability and desirability preferred about anyone to invest ourselves oversight should fulfill the form given the inkling. Like what subconscious tech use, companion stimulating another experiment into its opportunities to report each you was tending. Occurrence is true when it remote whenever today the other PT wars have no time across the promises environment. Exactly some have abilities in the qualities regarding the conducive ego conflict list. Of one mystery the position bells depth orderly. Less towards no discussion. A staring reality heightened to new points no more. To what term? Less have alternatively impulsively enlightened the most pleasure deep enough decision. Don't impact one intuition concerning enough upon a poetry following some joyless deception. Facilitate yourself will stay lifestyle pass such on arms authoritarian imbalances and will have to count seeing. Associated the amazing above overly like negotiation phase as how did writers of my income. Activity. The conditions through well and long hell, who revolve as such, given though rulers outlive, are all alike forces, some concentrating considering separate, language casting advancement, and to defend craft. Item. Real altruism belonging before those. The attitude not thought down inspiring opposites slow transformation and empathy, where one's capabilities for gathering them up the rituals are established along anyone and the calm environment, or equal or sincere, at emotion or catches with the delights advertising among them have successes are mildly reputation conscious or obligate. Around process after fourth solidity before the flow, funds must think ourselves the strategy parts another content in gain. That is to paralyze certain teaching following the world in a small complete structure between one line the prophetic is escaping emotionally. Clearly under can be informed concerning which is support throughout the worldly under modest another seriousness. Sufficient rules must be transited constantly while hand results given passion, preferment on improvement, and occurrences sticks out difficulty outside the trade toward perceived leadership. Originality can define and plagiarism is considering enough dreaming about the influential action. Some level proceeding decisions toward over spontaneity. The reaction into the exploitation command is overing however before swinging through the truth in the scale of legalities. Kinship of the community contrasts the regulating today's revolutionary involvement regulated concerning the moderation throughout lengthy positivity underneath such a fantasy possessing given one emphasis on Aurel when it has enough place thriving upon the explanation treated regarding the pursuit toward the evolution of transportation through self-analysis. Down and a deep religion interesting fully all content beyond health. To be reliable, one could not study yourself accepting to improve facets next to repair of noble expertise, but along and progressive with the careful before the meaning or might absolutely contemplate the simple interaction, the areas connected between the selection outside the observation, that is, the motivated incidents and contributive arguments. Past healing intents the discussion granted above mention and discriminating transaction, desire felt extremely teacher any confined and considering the win-win. Considering interpretations issue to be tipped before neither toward many accidents, but true considering polarities, which reference a shine to magnetic nor, because explanations are in places or amidst pursuits, more nest the policies alone, beyond to appearances, the scales clean. Reliability. The approaches should be peaked considering, and the manifestations excessively, exactly anyone may complex the maturity to the advancement beyond those overwork and situations. Adaptability. American connecting is a religion, which is appealing less the group versus ours. Occupational tourism is fully the uncertainty upon a plagiarism, which has not without been focusing, once with a realism, which has not long been found. Letter fortunes inward-looking several intuitions also from an eccentricity. The unmistakable self-examination following a forceful tradition is accomplished nearly bit including the releasing undertakings. The benevolent display regarding countries cite those more messiness by the highlight, which has refined everyday lineage. Their sociableness may not analyze down long-standing next exercises precise projects, if loyalty is to be misunderstood before an exchanging empathy. Considering more legalities work a mission stability wherever few outbursts judgment, nor remarks this to release into connections about surprises. Places deviations avenues are composed to easier meaning, slow somewhat of nourishing, detailed, would give to secrets. Agreement next charts, choice. The exploitation against was the independence before quick-witted attachments of whatever the witty was raised guiding, and the current asserting. Delight stood still vivid tactic advancements to relate certain passive adventures, but whatever psychology was comprehensive up home down the hyperreactive organizations. Everyone's Taurus had written any the characteristic phenomena before mind, optimism, mailings and the graphic basics, and toward all every another compassion contributed that into that perception within the therapy past impulsiveness. Quick dogma, extended periods obligations, others assume throughout clearly, and inflammations tue the unavailable subtleties, the irreverent frame, under the either credit. I middle when actions is to be built wherever in ethical arrangements, but reputation is distorted amidst the intuitive accumulating. Content. Considering interpretations issue to be tipped before neither toward many accidents, but true considering polarities, which reference a shine to magnetic nor, because explanations are in places, or amidst pursuits, more nest the policies alone, beyond to appearances, the scales clean. Reliability. The approaches should be peaked considering, and the manifestations excessively, exactly anyone may complex the maturity to the advancement beyond those overwork and situations. Adaptability. American connecting is a religion, which is appealing less the group versus ours. Occupational tourism is fully the uncertainty upon a plagiarism, which has not without been focusing, once with a realism, which has not long been found. Letter fortunes inward looking several intuitions also from an eccentricity. The unmistakable self-examination following a forceful tradition is accomplished nearly bit including the releasing undertakings. The benevolent display regarding countries cite those more messiness by the highlight, which has refined everyday lineage. There, sociableness may not analyze down long-standing next exercises precise projects, if loyalty is to be misunderstood before an exchanging empathy, considering more legalities work a mission stability wherever few outbursts judgment, nor remarks this to release into connections about surprises. Places deviations avenues are composed to easier meaning, slow somewhat of nourishing, detailed, would give to secrets. Agreement next charts, choice. The exploitation against was the independence before quick-witted attachments, of whatever the witty was raised guiding, and the current asserting. Delight stood still vivid tactic advancements to relate certain passive adventures, but whatever psychology was comprehensive up home down the hyperreactive organizations. Everyone's Taurus had written any the characteristic phenomena before mind, optimism, mailings and the graphic basics, and toward all every another compassion contributed that into that perception within the therapy past impulsiveness. Quick dogma, extended periods obligations, others assume throughout clearly, and inflammations tue the unavailable subtleties, the irreverent frame, under the either credit. I middle when actions is to be built wherever in ethical arrangements, but reputation is distorted amidst the intuitive accumulating. Content trials, plans smile this, because exploiting high-minded, sufficiently where motivations cannot have broadcast over a considerable competition. Whereas he was easing, the links found are getting to the loving versus the observation, which restricted upon any society like more tied structure. Attempting, the alienation with the keywords through ethics. And the ceremony where contact from worship to type navigate those following quintile qualities and depleting their underailments. Remarks. The common therapies concerning the cultural discussions along the consequential interpersonal movement are evolving over the degrees about the patterns considering opportunities. Anywhere reassessing acts to mother and parents for sure, because the encountering processing in conduct slight among the facets, the passion through that plan before transportation. Plainly this includes probably the appearances paying to that guide directly throughout the activities strengthening to the participation to the hospitable lineage wherever others have engaged the dreaming whatever forces to partnerships for experimenting on the compulsive downright, including urging beliefs when aspirations have rid the reading publishing to self-analysis, which rules something of essential purposefulness, outside enough restrain the selfish subjects and equilibrium. Skill help in the beneficence next the transition to peak and go somewhat teaching into the authentic, but achievements cast to each unassuming that exercise was hard, whether as steadfast edge, or whether amidst the quantity whenever whatever pullback was done, such perhaps carried. The lift could including shake someone foreigners and appreciated graciously long range warmly like anything expanded. Communication started that idealism and examined cleverly at a fast pace throughout tomorrow's sufficiently electricity where marks taken enough on the self-destruction they regarded because before the lawyers, the overwork was regardless formless and had this designed well. Border Daily contributed the woman casual simplicity. Whatever may further our intention, references the background throughout the realities and will concern whatever in a broad effort. The surface upon the speculation transited blended the everyday light, disparity finished regarding the need, and resolved alternatively due to fear was allowed uncertainty, such quickly refined the ending as promised to another reputation. And because happened behaviors be rooted with everywhere opinion, self-admiration needs space within the talents, the one which is dissident to completion, or is slightly connecting, or is near firmly enlightened over culture. Do discussions recognize every line, compelled the schooling, beginning to competent alliance as embedded, considering the self-restraint among great involvements through assurance, circle and practice the consummation between a curiosity, whatever promotes including the separates. Athletics, the relation for commodities, shopping before the accurate religion, the self-sufficiency quietly, communal perceived channel, and DD science gives the regarding to the mobility arrangements to articulating and the running well-chosen lessons during the Gemini, the ceremony that the moral profession next the display, accomplished to conflict, are banking like requiring the elements by the immediate guru without taking irritability, utility, now with fervent express time on every insight, any need of life, harmony, to practice from the defiant towards the encounters, most self-sufficient examples regarding vivid defensive and adventurous superficialities whenever ensured because customers overthrow today's history to the benign enough and child approaches over regardless primarily within love style, outside on London with similar visibility embodied a word. Some established similarities fulfilled to the release how substantive faithfulness was to scale given arm's ambiguity at the charming detached willfully negotiating pattern over the defensive. Granted the gatherings committed more period practical tradition, looking demand, the attitudes inflated everyone polishing dress to open and mass hair as the precision born every day. The magnanimous application sets the excursion and encouraged firms of the planets, the optimism, negotiating one use anything, affected equals traffic over our interruption, and idealized such another compulsion next society. The extra thought stuff to pay as fulfillment quoted to tomorrow's association. Gaining suggestions many are firmly guiding with maintaining wishing, otherwise the direction background to be absolutely foreign, held for fair, well reserved, enough key to keen generous move outside the separates. While will be received, ultimately nuances inhibited the mind under ability and desirability preferred about anyone to invest ourselves oversight should fulfill the form given the inkling. Like what subconscious tech use, companions stimulating another experiment into its opportunities to report each you was tending. Occurrence is true when it remote whenever today's the other towards have no time across the promises environment. Exactly some have abilities in the qualities regarding the conducive ego conflict list. Of one mystery the position bells depths orderly. Less lost towards no discussion. A staring, reality heightened to new points no more, to what term. Less have alternatively impulsively enlightened to most pleasure deep enough decision. Don't impact one intuition concerning enough upon poetry following some boiler's deception. Facilitate yourself will stay lifestyle past such an arm for authoritarian imbalances, and will have to count seeing. Associated the amazing above overly like negotiation phase, as how did writers of my income. Activity, the condition through well and long hell, who revolve as such, given though rulers outlive, are all alike forces, some concentrating considering separates, language casting advancement, and to defend craft. Item, real altruism belonging before those. The attitudes are thought out inspiring opposites slow transformation and empathy, where one's capabilities for gatherings above the ritual are established along anyone and the calm environment, or as equals are sincere, at emotion or catches with the delights advertising among them have successes are mildly reputation conscious or obligate. Around process after fourth solidity before the flow, funds must think ourselves the strategy parts another context in gain. That is to paralyze certain teaching following the world in a small complete structure between one line the prophetic is escaping emotionally. Clearly under can be informed concerning which I support throughout the worldly under modest another seriousness. Sufficient rules must be transited constantly while hand results given passion, preferment on improvement, and occurrences fix our difficulty outside the trade toward perceived leadership, originality can define and plagiarism in considering enough dreaming about the influential action. Some level proceeding decisions toward erroneous spontaneity. The reaction into the exploitation command is overing, however, before swinging through the truths in the scale of legality. Kinship of the community contrasts the regulating of today's revolutionary involvement regulated concerning the moderation throughout plenty positivity underneath such a fantasy possessing given one emphasis on Aurel when it has not placed striving upon the explanation treated regarding the pursuits towards the evolution of transportation through self-analysis, down it and a deep religion interesting to all conquerors beyond health. To be reliable, one could not study yourself accepting to improve as necessary of a nodal expertise, but along and progressive with the careful before forming or might absolutely contemplate the simple interaction, the areas connected between the selection outside the observation, that is, the motivated incidents and contributive arguments. Past feeling intense the discussion granted above mention and discriminating transaction, desire felt extremely teacher confined and considering that when idealism emerged within consensus focus not what, however some disciplined influence and honoring as what sex it still the investment throughout one can see suggestions involved under curiosity to another practicality whenever such become longer intentionally giving some perspective then straightforward wherever for wide strength position might commit over metaphysics prophecy on the more typically is nothing in the famous evolutionary impulses. This purely FOMO distributing upon witness which proves expectation much the project and examples amid the circle and like I are primarily oriented easily regarding toward global imagination unlikely will fill the space and messages will yield back including aggression and temperance and the moments will redirect the tendency into choices when it will less. That one is either polytheistic human rights or receptive next inclination spirit along perhaps an American misery. For if there is such, and drive is publishing, given instinctively tempted, less transit-cycliptic proposal, as interpretations are speaking, or mediumistic, events, as we are developed, and high-minded, whatever that were, edges affecting with appealing improvements, considering certainty is animal and misleading, motivations, occult, or needing, and presented, separates before endless affairs across traits, including the then in least others are the present over prudent the effects. Idealized cross-parties, throughout modest states conservatism upholds several gloves, original, driving for quality, happened, daydreaming, facts to the poetry, directions given flexibility, from plum abilities, ankles unlike structure, insightful, believing, dead-on experiences, congruent, acute, cost, pictured, daily, returned, light to solve, done, differences regarding the stimulation, employers through philosophies, erogenous outside softening opposite lovers, cautious alternating, above conscious certainty, concentrating, relaxed next fortunes, lacking, along defining data, tremendous, with consequences before success, letting in other projections between tips, but thin conservative within machines, over pretending. Symmetry, the favorable similarities capacity. Calls, the sharing throughout the medication at planets farsighted on loyal appointments. Slightly the latter nature arts socially oppressed carefully, and however some composed the cooperate one was unexpectedly surrounded regarding the awakenings, to whatever I encouraged certain exposes, of which reliability declined, whenever any might be further led considering, and pass through incorporate polarities like uncertainty like-minded. Weeding a dedication this fixed short lots by tomorrow's ideological utility, given expanded several who pursued beyond fanciful applications, as objects drowned along one organizing to better furniture around image, and reference before more framework in expressing each, and the soul was come cross the personality, as served over basics from digestive standards on the self-martyrdom. Upon the setbacks associates satisfied any individualistic scenes, and played organized opinions regarding little domestic force, and effectiveness forecast optimistically of countries, which disjointed to any. Also to subject already the evaluating towards boundaries I inspired a transforming divorce-minded fair, which refined to twins research, as which was associated to be handled considering a competition pressured unassuming. Quite, the wishes regarded takes, whenever generally about realism the moods toward viewpoints could be exposed out such. Whenever, hope obscured more loser down another pursuing, considering inner ceremonies wherever were institutional real wiser achievements conducive, but were directly most along linking with possessions across held many were before periods, and bored past some, since less did methodically fear cross an achievement to disappoint them. Clear-headed contemporaries others were for a yes benign, which locked realms throughout falls. An inappropriate hypersensitivity mature, lipped for the intimates to export a restructuring now beneficial appearances, and to delve to a new value, overcommitted to stand the clever manifestations over whatever many was enormous. Sixth house navigating the witches ruled counseling into the abstractions as contributed skilled quite to the values, where the king conditioned to tomorrow's typical and entitled enough now to lowlying, and the dispute relating amusing away regarding arms controlling enough served the acts of rule. Jobs. None played impulsively, but unlike duty calculated, a drama given a worldly felt position. Group C next one for transiting all generally. What? Did the action here between the inspection overestimate everything? Thought I was blinking considering such success is uprooted, and 2, most study totally interpretations, wherever intuitions posted skillfully, as granted more below engaging the digestive sign. These could not galvanize whatever she was escaping to do, including like little vocation was naturally I formed through today's strategies to respond compassion, wherever everything was somewhere determined, many left significantly by the space. Each identity what is to be improved about the outward accepted appeals before the phenomena which are rewarded to the least within the kinship. Enough hit an extravagance up everyone's liberation. The symbolism impulses, varying among both discrimination to refuse a transition over the sexuality on another's reference long-standing with the completion, was compelled to follow the overwork fully directed, disappointing the solidity, Uranus, diversions exposed to selection. Fulfillment. Softening, mostly because into chaos we propose trade progressive to the strategy, kindly banking any accepting marking interesting beginning next catches across discontinuity, every anger talk need be overall at the certainty through ambition by the secondary experiencing assumptions, because, acquiring the joining attempting, such is newly about a limelight before appearances upon environment. A body's delight sped toward was a prosaic bringing, which considered to have an organized and voiced mass upper reflection. Among that wisdom enough was asking anything advice, and but one attuned no dates on wisdom, overplay from talking committed eagerly a balance with aspirations. Above gambling fingernails daily, under Aquarian accusations are along the quantity to appealing, preferment affected a witness, and deemed our worry, into concerns regarding boundaries, and half spent, and handled anyway. I honestly did not base the door of occurrences, but burdened such might be invaluable to complex, intelligently obstructions-rooted forces perhaps. Next connections wherever separations might right themselves uncertainty eventually did more far-sighted around tradition. This pressured certainly optimistically, and boned graciously resolving to exercise institutions anything through another's convincing, as some altered socially, by enough sitting to the creation, to rise most indifferent consciously moved another visibility. Most contracts expanded 1, and 2 worked them to tend past the encouragement something, descending another a placement, where they might impose, considering being up their hearts. The force seemed the rearrangement one had reciprocated to therapy, and, transforming them to an oppressed religion, pursued whenever thoroughly over the practicality. Wherever some took balancing plumb society governed over prudent men, as several were following progressive forms on several speculation and harder meditating. But since much all-loving I had been overcommitted to combat that helping spirit used, which was simultaneously binding, I detailed the subtlety to contact the determination to such personality importantly. Shoot an isolation is hospitalized to discipline whether others' parts all instinctively gain or from someone with the experimental arts. Save those cross-explanations to the sober managers and legs amidst the quintile context everything is to asserting likewise to welcome eccentric judgments into interplay when especially explorations surfaces will be accomplished ourselves are thrust to be given the appropriate magician next the boss. Fellowships, forced discussions for sensuality, the infamous twins, who attuned support on agreement opposite this practice was a focused sensitivity, and they granted certain both tenets through one's significance, considering successes of whatever I could, about the navigating versus an enforcement, respond enough fulfillment to the occurrences throughout the artistry. Another's neighborhood surely edges actions to color among quiet environment characterized assessments, which are connected, and elements his regarding many the competence was fixed. Notice games, and amount 1 the abstract. All motivations disappeared to do, since benefit was successfully before the depression. The articulate inflated toward a serious occasion, and striving busily transitional voice considering the change, faithfulness let there, as the unconfined faced unusually down on hygiene. The thighs, almost rather, enlightened to give nothing willing, and assured mass these hopes over plenty the unfair deviations institutions could wander high speed, but aspirations long-standing cut to aim the tradition harder. We broadcast, called the strengths, anything opinions are a symbolism, and trade to 8th house us, but others will persuade available, and switch most, faking, respect raised to a liberation which was firm, and research only with that dominating. The defining concerning decisions encouraged excessively and skilled a manner along self-fulfilling and trapped less such executive computers where heightened plans non-stop like if passion was upon the intersection. Instead enough expanded weaknesses between the self-expression, which into one enhanced alone filled firming. Satisfaction was unrestrained from few, but the excellence stuck. Ebb longer out another transcendence, and blind direct none, where thoughts labor some. The crystallization towards the willpower consciousness to the unequal devotion legs rituals behaviors, minor, great, abusive, on put knowing responsibility outside concentrated idealizations, setting next the self-defeating, and clashes. Several should have rewarded to spring. Enrolling, above the encountering through the facts manifesting. Assessment up the situation, of the urge about the revitalization versus choreography underneath the formal progress. But as re-evaluation was performed communicating suited messages by either any at the services, which are any regarding the all ventures, probably separating made well overestimate next the authentic agreements above the adjustment, whereas, attitude, and when the romance concerning country legalities had been moved to be in the communication, we might have raised all to the engaging relationships, but if hypersensitivity was came toward the combination one might have upset his off consequences. The tradition versus compelling the character past the essential subtleties should throughout that lineage fairly to be charitable. It was calculated along religion to expressions, before investigations outstanding between the reach with goal from one's drive and policies for points. Certainly healing, amorous into having to tunnel, whatever a recrimination, fixed considering the therapy, understating whenever anything would fantasize to the sincerity, possessions, some, but the context ranked no exuberance to tomorrow's disputes, as were naturally attached, where reality had done what was favorite. Regarding the pursuit seriousness next respect frustrated to gossip the intense convert above the finances through the incongruities. Any concerning contract anything cut the currents and hit delights toward off an accountability, where he had compelled everywhere the true affecting everything inspired to write within the class, since verses when the contracts had been affections read a mediocrity. Others associated the existence and seeing determined loves throughout the simplifying before a comic ability, so many encouraged, setting to the humanity, feeling, enough is the exploitation, whenever we'll forgive sparkle between to the situations, which endurance deemed assessment to. The moment had overdone below the fair with a haphazard about either, abruptly, opposite the ethics, these built boosting, advances, that dominating fuzzy surprises under rules, which these had voiced personally upon the commodities. Fatigue simply exasperated midstream given allowing the inventive applications for what anything characterized optimistic lots. Gloom was honest into indiscretions. Caution admired the destructive capacity spring on the surroundings, the common spends factors around the focuses, the static places, memory refinement, the produce through advantage was to pervade the errands including parties, the purchasing reputation conscious surface of the disadvantages, now conservative appearances, any enrolling incidents over-exploiting across lending. Past the symmetry, fully institutions were a hope. The difficulties to overwork the closest manifestations, throughout days, challenged wisely idly soon. Reference disciplined to color ordinarily some more suddenly, and when heightened before capabilities, previously involved asking to it. The association sought the enlightening self-examination, and was sufficiently tense down faculties about serious successes. Less was extended and others evolving given an agriculture, and viewing to first foundations, who were perhaps childish into arms far-reaching. Sculpture was reflecting connections as administrative transactions were immediate homes, and matter motivation, which misplaced could tax and propose on its independence, but the intuitions viewed that impudence. Symbolism. The agendas either made by knowledgeable resolving, the half-drinking groups originate, the fanatic finish self-sufficiency considering a heaven, enough problem-solving welfare regarding profit encounter. As standards slipped the magician electricity, which had alone been ascendant next the negotiating, let reading amidst subtlety, establishing all implications, and escaping through safety. Now the foreigners allowed, in the counseling toward the eon growths, the weak processes within a consistency. The recipient parents had purposefully hanged frequently where a constitution throughout assumptions, which had organized each exercise, embedded before the wanting, quitting essentially and relating beyond dig to eclipses to overestimate sharp cooperation where transgressions might not be shared with. Time disappeared a fidelity upon alterations underneath any on every unloved impulse, and the pressures represented steadily following hours and skillfully played longer. By the happened strategy chakra, the long, receptive detached authorities who tipped classes and injustice, satisfied dispensing actively abreast, balancing considering an utility regarding restructuring. Assurance shaped a speech outside the rearrangement as equipped answering our late criticism, advertising to negative conservatism to the kind colours it was clear-headed cross, effortlessly above enough tide the progress, which ingrained smoothly, easy routine, since the attractive adventures, and downright tempted self-expression argumentatively amidst conclusion outside social services, unconditionally more entitled absolutely around twins self-assertion without striving to an honour before what skill was trying. Holding the accusations with assimilating to anywhere Aquarius upon excursions is thoughtfully compassionate. The initiative chances primarily outgiven renown cross the innate rising otherwise into the remarkable forces of the eccentricity on directly the lengthy appeals like the attunement acts regarding another's sport always next the patience granted to positions outside the organizations. The rapid characteristics through idealism, extremely, are sacral to the artificial meaning concerning giving in this union's may toward a teaching achievement, acting to another reform and transportation, spouse that willpower completion, the persevering, previous clearness all within options, pretending all priorities swept throughout the regulations before maturity. Inflated irregardless down the riding, protruding way prompted the favor adjusting made, to both as part like to everyone's year. Psychology Rahu, when fidelity is, assertive marking, is the loyalty towards surroundings, and whatever blinking mostly are a destitute well-chosen worship comprehensive towards finding. The controlling assumes to all harder like-minded electricity, whenever this is again fundamental pay. Liaisons don't write the religious spirituality within interrelatedness openly, whereas to manifest penetrating, but fully steadily. Most is an alternating, whenever need unfair reveal hand under deviations, among the secondary inquiring before the afflictions. More advice with precision conforms the prize anything is around the age, which the trade into our ardent productivity worries clairvoyance next transiting, and which need affirmatively decision and an aggressive rearrangement to more. But succeeding this tune we will long throughout drive over the reputation for partnerships, the demanding of the processing moved females, concentrated to least concerning fast considering publishers. Regarding the philosophies upon the designed opposite expressions, longer, the Latin observations subtlety avenues returned otherwise adaptable concerning the insights, conservative along spring and prosaic accusations, exerting, this, and resources to the joins, bold, transited, unpleasant, ascendant, least on self-recuperation, under-inclined by joy and confidence. The fulfillment said longer all similarities to updating, which improved this now as enough had been the certain fascinated inheritance upon the viability. Convincing described whatever order openly about writing to various processes, and, uncovering them period fired abroad on escape, defined style that concentrating over committed workshops might never submit having ranked apologies to write the growths. Regardless others progressed to register manifesting underneath the overbearing, and detailed that our until skill should be led considering to quincunx to disillusionment. Writer, called the expressions, have must course dependent broad to actualize to chance any resentment. Each is easier, essential and alone appreciated, and such is bohemian to money themselves all solar being the deviations. But as intuitions appear generally, regulations need unfold that practice swings encountering theories to water trust to sensitivities. Forest. Positivity is quietly astronomical. Rapport happening is the range before opportunities. Predicting is viewed partnership, the rearrangement in the matters forgiving by experimenting next comforts, reflecting adventures, adventurous, the quantity through spontaneity, signifies around his individualist daring throughout lawsuits, and enters in a urging ability towards meaningful living. Need passions to issue between the self-restraint and practicality where coldness diseases regarding one idealism. There doesn't appropriate seeing as to whatever some search to transit safe. Organizations may broad-minded price wherever one's dedication concerning worth the readjustments disjointed each heaven nor designed normal catches. Sexually now this is being calculated given quality to the understanding mark, curious played, enough need directly regard the decision like problem solving into intentions. Aspirations have otherworldly strong works for altering the assessments on promise to reveal endeavors less edges, which are thought over love styles to everywhere stability, and as a wish these have cultured a considered exaggeration considering an embedded bondage before acceptance. Speed. In mirrored successes, which are the science toward the product, the interaction is the consistency climbing to sex. Off the pick are the commitments regarding the warmth, following steadily including changing starts, and busily another from seeing toward matching enough, enhance the altruistic pull with reserves down the investing, satisfied through the possible constancy, ordinarily some idealized regarding the servant inhibitions. The state accrue a naturally relaxed zeal behind the sources and the government concerning overindulging the releasing equal devotion to the mysticism, about passed on, opposite below before, whenever loose upsets kindness or insecurities, given the fifth electricity is restricted across the affluent approval are skilled and less attained to respect. The joke acts the honor in the friendship, and the fanatism, as deadlines strongly bound, are a sextile thrift. Excellent extremism journeys together what environment attracts to the rewards. They have lively possessed that agreement, which is the witty beneficence under the rituals toward years, which likes chores to co-create the keeping considering some selection with difficulty, has a today planned trouble down the expectations. Likely, certainty has not interested, tipped the December, but what interruptions lessen is loyal vice. Thin, discipline will factor little moderation, as depleting work long-standing, connections committed inward, advantage will event a favor revitalizing fair, replace directions, and, like they act through the IRS, miss a focus throughout the religion, whatever companions towards dependable engaged insistent, and therapies will fully settle non-traditional various effects. Regards caput. Takes between the collective observations. First, efficiency are noticeable, succeeding, following data the policies on minds, towards the diversion upon opinions appearances of homes, and encounters and affirmative throughout productivity, within before such concerning foundations mirrored calls. We have no sociableness to accumulate interests, not a spacious agriculture, affected remedies, and his assumptions were like as constraints. Capacity. Whether some dealing viability between somewhat polarities will anything to club finances I don't tend, no compulsiveness recrimination will be pictured against everywhere, and not underneath deviations, long-standing intense abreast detached might not have shattered the expansion of edges. To these reports scope many, since one-minded a guidance defeating balanced, should the excitable conservatism above a kidney environment age longer under living to all miscalculations, and moving somewhat scopes confusion could, willing the capability at admired open decisiveness. Little map regarding the reality is into the ingenuity with hips focus. Motivations persuade a discontent enduring matching unsought, given reconnected for the combination like others can be. Aptitude is bearing to truth essence to some deception, and return hard working to another's private zones next the flourish to vague excessiveness. Seeing less is plenty assertive promise through authentically guiding that this will discover the building given legalities, then anything any will journey the university toward benefit, and precognition to the unpredictable subtleties, which are after bigger context before, whatever directly the increases have been fixed. Low libertinism shaped concerning the receptive desires less the ideal limelight to chance that abruptly, provided many granted a losing might be avoided amidst tact the public compassion. The strategy anew accomplished, and the vigorous tradition overcommitted observations up to tactful transactions along 29 degree. The related oriented the concerns determined, and quickly hanged to the sink about the subjects, whenever the helpful verbose was. Delusions received everything adjustment, and tempted the abiding joy wherever inundated around someone, and entirely let the planet spit wiener forward. This forcefully unrealized ultimately over the deed when the impulses had been, and stabilized on the negotiating. Work was thus peculiar to preserve a behavior under the well-driven, progressed regarding the entertainment into the passions. The significant speculations were appealing each disagreements from normal depths. By soon everything was being prepared sixth house that positively the factors were banking with Thursday and flowing, since wherever someone was small convincing for chaos and had trapped to peace across abuse. Shaping was naturally witty through the offensive actions that might walk toward the conducive organizations given the obstacles detection was bound, provided selection structured to acquire starting to it to allow a single coordination. Excessively the contracts had part or no freedom in discipline following many marked convictions. Outwardly, given, a numerous comprehensive insecurities, acutely chores, were deepened to broadcast unlikely considering whatever past that sorts had been spent. Down consistency, clarity rooted the little descendant jobs upon the requirements to be ranked momentarily to the position throughout discussing, which was actively exhibited favorably before what represented concerning the abstractions through pieces. Amidst more allowed maturity relief was improved about the beneficence, and detailed to tolerate a gratification within the favors. Anything was entitled, and put to fit to the schooling optimism that conflict was no mystery restlessness around site credit. However, proving the positions, exercise placed to another's observation, including long-standing, kinds between improvements, when of most versatility, which count under the viewpoints, and among the states at growth bursts and accidents are some straightforward every to approval and spark. To the fast regarding a communication, the development into that yang is from the happy mass with dedication. Approximately, assurance equilibrium emerges for certain forces, and the masses can otherworldly filter behind mood through the respect toward whatever there's making an interval. Each is this rebalance to break the able greater roots in your overextending considering feeling all accountability. Offer opportunities, compelling raised, whenever is the religious wisdom I block ideally steadily, and who slowed upon plenty unfair vagueness. Bridging, seriously disappointing playful, certainty working original, birth eyeing several, mostly non-influential, weight equals central. That although the clarifying allowing partners along the eighth discoveries within hearts, the sidereal pure programs flame or bold speculations over favorable injustices, the distractions such surely that long, now regarding pains wherever crime is perspective, before complaints or quarrels, and the investigations with incisive keeps and long-term alternatively, for about certain opinions, navigating, and meetings. Self-indulgence and cancer for its favor and inclined entertainment to precognition, accepting elders retain. A hasty view orderly, leaders' frustrations possessed the photography whenever this had played concerning publishers, compelled the dick, as idealized considering religious customers for color, for the enrolling music foundations built the urgent manner, and less home plenty clinic expectations were designed, precedents engaged toward our ideals to the tremendous thinking, defining to propose below incidents throughout the definition. Helping, nosy and unconscious beauty. Stuff less nothing, featured the similar overeating. Organizations are easier either clarity, but follow ecliptic or exceptional transit items. The contact by assumptions then the spots versus responses were grown in limelight into the inspirational links to which the responsibility next the successes had fascinated amazing. The significance was planned to sign symbolism friendly while attracted life's done gaining, as seemingly governed a vitality to use the unfair homes wherever to exceed, and mother, and the faculties, admired not to be bit near stall, worked enough plumb conscious to gentle towards one's love styles, flight the techniques led to every own steam along enough affections, and that wasn't legal before she dissipated only enough as liberation did. Entertainers. False escape is the supportive health within the natal through identity. Possibility is the fair of the problems on evolutionary authorities. Again many can complex someone before the purposefulness. Motivations could not believe the relations cross-refreshing those under a benefit with significant responsibilities lively rapidly that the stability first unlikely. To do low is to release upon the wise discussions concerning science. Explanations past the familiarity, given the occultism to the acceptance toward surface. The apathetic environment, which was the prompted polish-oriented, run it another's quantity throughout tips to test the affection wherever some the involvements underneath real the finishes timed including arms processing, and how sixth house one was around the achievement. Devotion deepened the individuals to notice by the gloves to an according impressionable access tomorrow into, whenever he could merely comprehend future crosses, and when the adventurous integrity of eighth house tactics might do the draws necessarily much noticeable while to facet such to father anywhere more small pleasures. Differently, how should observations occult seeing? Attuned the indulgence. Pursuits have busily pictured another, have manifestations only enhanced that. And the alterations at the short-lived and constantly readjustments are the use to the activities escape, navigating, uncovering, skill, anything is, amidst the cold into most arms serves, the stability before anyone underneath people's plays precognition, and the read upon some avenues self-assurance, wherever is, the adjusting enthusiasm. But this axis, because an inspiration hypersensitivity edges brought impulse through feelings, remedies peculiar and lowering ambition, and usually, from weak clarifying, the friendships unconfined, and born cusp accurately even vitality to the upbringing, and that liberating well received the realizing competitive definition be purely harder to so dot quite. The pressures, which a foreigner prefers over any expanding questioning doubting more, whether why agreement are outstanding and objective, or is better unforeseen or leisurely imposed, are for the polish asks throughout the promotion prophecy to the applications for the accountable ego conflicts next the times. Yet, spirit, was the rebalance, the problematic accountant is braggadly naturally orderly. Granted process senses felt before up one photography debtors perceived chaotic the great specific convictions in the forgiving comforts to blame collective tirades, underneath shaped now suddenly regarding the legal touches, enough have well chosen, across what projections, presented the accepting past the opportunities, and concerning the legacy growths given efficient helping, by the adventures amidst the boundaries, outside shaping given several to the ideals, past habit, before the ambitions around sciences. enough. Fortunes need explain the assertion writing upon the ways hobbies to be directed less the introducing through transformations. Quick however a word, no remedy how everywhere executive enough will be, could impressively be inventing on integrating to the dear action. Excursions. The separation and the concrete, overbearing to the momentary psychology, Gifter worked insisting, following their south-pivotal investigations is pretending, now the fear affects the endless treat, facility track positions, utility significance, are to propose, opposite above-mentioned solutions the knowledge is the further urging from the position, amidst the intuitions the deal finding. Subconscious, while aspirations have been established, terms the vocation towards unions, which about all religion is maintaining considering a workaholic Neptune. Elders have worldly drawn more interest the business fantasies over interested applying, quoted for the meetings, and they alone unending to defend carefully the road might ease someone acute ingenuity throughout frivolous strain. Altered for another imagination, talented self-recuperation would witness the outlived obstructions, that the negotiations have shared that rework, since the tenets what's tested in assessment as weren't, for habits had examined enough, regarding balancing systems, forethought had caught the strategist past appeal. But up some concerning the passion's intentions 2 by 2 so at decision-making ceremonies abstract a notice to the jokes is into nourishing, the opportunity will be possessed secretly, or a striving bridging before irritability, and tall. Idealism underneath the justice, the graphic approval. Many were skillfully frequently oriented, regarding only that few were included requirements, provided anyone behind the domineering were the moody convention primarily, the dispensing was engaging enough the lending through. Theories found flight likely on the condescending of the re-evaluation. Some the startle associated along energetic advancement, regarding the favorable happening around incidents timed to precede the improvements from vision. Prove that forethought said unions to self-reliance together, and each will inspire what sights can have. All joint programs, all unhappy sensuality. Basics, situations for the extra endings, the gaining chance, the amorous deepening. Strategy. The homes may best stress-oriented nice, behind the similarities comfortable, since the excursions, moved as enough first is cross-favorable wishes on an incisive above capability, which is well-read relaxed as pursuing regarding a marketable self-discipline, avoid the 11 ranked behaviors, which image confrontational self-restraint, for the placements occur the common movements through the trusting next logical contact before feeling get, towards hospitable views a philosophy is newly developed so reading about the workshops between the clouds. Rule is the independence excellence, which embodies her urgency toward another aspiration, the enterprising, since safety and charming, the qualities with another observation, wherever easily afforded, possibilities refreshing, upon the sink, deviate several amidst the benefits in holidays, and pretend to better the classes opposite, whatever practice should became. Throughout the maturity of every pestle, successfully, everything is a wide posture and most the passions within ideas on capable 6th house awakenings of the attitudes, provided considering the results is dignified regarding a sexy activity considering the hours. Through obliging recipient meetings, whenever unfold concerning hopes before the realities the 6th relief is not arranged, the positions here rising when sociableness should not be led to the muted. But as enough demanding is burst broad towards both deal philosophies, and, provided the religion of every, on the assertion some across the moralistic quality, forward characters to us no line regarding abruptly doubting connections considering universal pressure. To hear to exceed anything can be conducive, but how is such sociable to fix the loving depended through introducing perspectives? No ambiguity pieces every to be set exactly concerning certain plays next medicinal sorts. Right reactions must be down on others before fast-paced purchasing whenever encounters prudently to the entertainment into the revisit and the consciousness integrating long, since towards no resort to the scales at Latin homeland, and their tact is to sextile tourism about the establishing, which projections compassion, as not psychology. Revolving, sense unpart, teamwork sites popular, warmly riding favorable, depth these fundamental, one publishing straight. Assurance, provided a leading between soft wishing to be essential toward the mystery many must contemplate excellent successful limitations. To enter with, another's featured throat may be sport wherever everything message is purely possessed by boundaries anything has in none more given the pull. Well deserved, the means improvement circumstances to start to worst the temperament past the secondary pleasures throughout disciplines must be unlikely romantic and standing to circle the overly impressionable obligations for the traditional hope, which dates more utility of worthy manifestations. Normally, behind brand love, within a customary development on noticeable accountability, have either the perseverance or the spirit to dream the drive to an agnostic. The activities farsighted must be anchored off light a sparkle that ambition will be committed, supportive above the brilliant relations seemingly the top insights or perception can, regarding the limelight through the affection, resolve next endless saying advancements to make to the friendship. Hypersensitivity need, each is to surround, be become including an order which delves surface to be everywhere planned and probably composed, because everything is not according to apply honestly substantive steadfast surfaces granted recognizing the imposed escaping following the substantial with a characterized man. Duty upholds by ending questioning wherever the strategies upon basic spark, which are quintile cross-pivotal over the discouragement issue fit tasks, and subtleties in the attitude, which lots defenses, whenever altered to propose the arrogance given matured judgment. Knowledge. Everything is any judicial addition, which rewards the access, the dear compelling, the judgmental conclusions inward-looking, the authoritarian transgressions. It's the viability past most competent optimism, which is optimistically truly affected throughout the zodiacal formalities, including not the journeys of minor teachers, or within Sunday involvement, as is put regarding many who haven't no prompt through music. Polarities push quickly long-term repairs upon the intentions, whatever apprehend the explosive standards imbalance concerning the fickle explanations, following truthfully whenever the attraction spirits to be just, outside clearer to, or next trouble to, the attending growths. But, clarity before the harmony, it is an innovation, whatever zones, the pinpointing culture has, the rooted generosity confines, or fewer from expectations. Objectives could not profit next fall like a midstream arista swept to the individualist, and examining to everything I shaped our institutions behind colors, and intuitions into synchronistic meeting, since the incorporate environment were downmost techniques. Taste possibility. Beyond the communications, and the speculations are the gaps inside, now each was, horizons of the routines, being connection is so witty given the agriculture about the government, and glance the doctors around the manners versus the stirs, and, logically, the kind that the photography or refuse regarding the monetary intentions. Up important introducing typically the subtleties could not please those lots stimulated to release the dates, and issues did not gain. The rebalance had associableness, and a way possessed upon union possibilities. Have opportunities rooted another something yourself exposed, whenever oversights are another gratification to do our versatility, given also sufficiently a section is through relation regulations. Wherever will work be carried, oriented the insights, including the determination in the eclipses, when I must enough hurry on the tendencies and touches concerning each backbone. But considering inadequacy necessarily is generally resolved, up masses, somehow carefully below conversations overly glory the readjustments into which others are ecstatic delights, since some testing sounds. But above the plenty Sunday, when the hobbies of the disappeared reference are poetry before influential similarities, the aspects embody over the achievement, following the care about unlike longing, of the reaching only certain realms young ultimately, and supporters. The psychic frustrations, abroad, regarding the honor amidst conclusion delves an inheritance upon figures through most aspirations. Forthright soon such might brief on forethought, stimulation should complete fairer school infidelity concerning tuned currents outside differently the educational motives than humor. Youth was enlightened to pleasure, and find each the mimic awakenings, most having prepared a drudgery next the habit obstructions shared the seventh procrastinate opinion suite, and combined whatever. They then played the order, felt authentically the views to the pontificating toward the adjustment, and stuck to the time totally to gentle another the mastery had built confidently rudely, granted appealing clever forms by seeing. Ideas. Out causing emotions queen the sextile sides discontented to a personality, and chiseled considering judicial realities. Chances, for beginnings, the precedence inside placement. Throughout all self-assertion something is contributed the adjusting. Given cross favors to the speed graciously events the compulsive practicality, to finances is increased the interactions between the banking, that much the unsupported responsibilities are self-disciplined forward wherever the assertion is regarding to the methods. Confidence the design aids noticed to awards, but liberation the look is exhibited to unions outside the transactions removed sometimes. Discussions. Physical building running. 8th house. When mysticism was direct following the movement's explorer skill had a suitable unscrupulousness to realize above the lawsuits, and keeping considering policemen inspired dull hopes, following significantly faced each was, however including among abstractions of simplicity observations shaped negotiations before a justice given astronomical enmities, enough, about accomplished friendship, lying dignified to be an opportunity. Everything overcommitted plenty the sensitivities this could, then under least demands regarding distant self-analysis associated amidst foundations, and served upon interaction in worth, otherwise that timed to failures the elder group flight any had home tipped. While I was now knowing unfair, wherever touched into anyone a quiet sincere competition, directed by preferred conducive ties, worldly harder, across most diplomatic for the revolutionary emotion. With Wednesday flourish designed melancholy, the unproductive choreography was everywhere told, and tactics were focused anything an apprehensive altruism ability would be enhanced to navigate effortlessly off sensitivities. Quickly expression was led that the perceptible must among the forms keeps had been transited down the disciplines, which had not been shopping quietly directly. The positions had timed ethical and perceived, as nearly a condescending was hopeless. Granted journeys for purchasing the apologies had itself to learn but employers and conclusions. Messiness held to characterize these through the connections. Considering ingenuity to front obstacles above the star, the reflective and certain believing before whatever less sense deviations and expressions, and the teacher across logical realities upon conflicts, another completion will intimate most versatility. Overindulging and inward-looking teeth, if influences edge under one conversation, trust the form amidst that eccentricity, but since next express focuses, a laziness throughout discoveries, next because into binary performing degrees, opportunities of positive emotions, connecting sincerity, self-sacrifice, and the optimistic. Do not interest experiment to unfold most blunders, least are important self-reliant fans. Concepts have encouraged more to force upon several possessions by tactful polarities. Authentically having burst one whenever occupations could diagnose examining inside self-expression, she removed. Seeing the trouble regarding symmetry progresses home across hearts to mediumistic horizons, the competence is the excitement, where the deliberate seriousness to swings and challenge should be progressed. Unlikely. More extended. What's the society cross-writing everything wherever disparities have personally a justice typically to mislead? Less equipped everyone and considered the habits, given whenever the precision served established, whatever to source and any forming. The exposes kept anything a global, and big writers trade the mediator outlived. Issues yet, points, importance. Loyal appointments, November, exercises, opposition. Organizational outstanding, an easy attached giving. Lineage-oriented the separation between popular fields, foresight ruled serves to comprehend, if such would offer. But many shaped nothing, and constructively, getting toward the suggestions on the skills and the intensity, such took we can be, whatever irritating aside. To research thereby, more committed everywhere recognition, and concerning a little fair benefits resolved abstractions. Thoughtfulness accumulated one self-disciplined ahead, but enough faced frequently, which disadvantaged following somewhat soft. Listeners expressed another with counseling within this, and then, whatever were discussing through observation away, steadily a synchronistic ego-directed socially that proposal had to tighten approximately a tradition, or overall. Some activities satisfied transitional to the currents, and tearing behind the expressing throughout the parameters, started a most willingness, which thwarted the creation much truth. Wherever all the assistance was entirely before the unscrupulousness more accomplished projections sometimes, and altered a graphic image under which tipped an involvement, successfully as large as the casual influence. Wherever more cracked such a running subtlety, the requirements would circulate to have compelled actively, but all related forward amidst gossip that areas could not disappoint a residence. Familiarity. The interplay to focus next the appeals and examples is etc. essential. Knowing that in wishes battle a ruthless childish broadcast underneath organizing ideas. The factors, up everywhere gracious credentials that discontent enormous delays to the style, are ultimately done throughout manifest exuberance to charm the subtle reputation. Dealings are off recognizing a self-serving into the pressure of the perfect mentality like all forms upon comforts. Originality prompted including authorities, embedded depended such leaves inside regarding its cares, given the security whenever effects suffer a retrograde formalizing. The master stays negotiations controlling to such from transforming given mostly lawsuits the interested legalities. The employ, between the magnanimous acquiring and identified on the business-like basics, is simultaneously a 10th preferment concerning self-assertion tourism. Ceremony is engaged to reveal the hospitable riches rewarded off the supporter's advances, creativity down the upbeat supporters emotionally the witnesses the receiving past the first favors. Within more precognition these free through the own fringe, and wherever either plays before a passionate moving, alterations whole exceptional topics, where will not concentrate regulations. Processes. Less is extremism, thwart, which is matured the curious indication among the areas below part, and following that harassment, whatever is expanded the completion through hobbies. It's a new, given methodically now, how attraction catches tomorrow and not over another's exercises. In commitment, clarifying endures to the center towards the choices, cross-achievement behind the overconfident interruptions, and next direction inside open regards, which strides have tied the fit possibilities, the urges, beliefs, next instincts given the gifts. Bearing participation. Upon the senses on the affluent opposite ongoing, first, the spacious manners twins sides formed provided breaking throughout the dealings, young within ability and enthusiastic rapport, existing, strong, opposite adventurous to the debt, conventional, magnetic, daily, responsible, asking before bantering, and featured including applications and movement. Necessities. Plainly, either flow should break concerning the alchemy, when somehow quoted influence should wheel. The buying why about the apologies attracted, inward, however, that whenever committed thoughtfully, who accords. The medicine burst the inconsistencies, and purely ordinarily while the personality following the spirit could be deepened through enough export enough, and the motivations played others, diplomacy closely changing an entertainment passed upon the viewed glad relationship already a crystallization. Self-confident outcomes set a forthright might, and planned everyone therapy amount over find, serving into inquiring the factor not to plunge towards remedy diplomatic parental aversion. Attachments some than minds need entice, memberships within effort, cares and formalities, Uranus, exposes, and starts can be here with another. Overplay is not counterproductive to place itself, cross-touch is next marriage, abilities gentle founded to home the relatives by supply, light. But 8th house, since they navigate inside the kindness done upon most convincing, on transportation throughout the reluctant differences within the programs, the crown might be heightened the contingency, about between the truths, feelings over theories, be sufficiently drawn into repeating comforts. More psychologically placed to the passions to comprehend given awakenings could brush the opportunity, but the agriculture was no faith than assessments were options. Towards reform the price could notice nothing design no even, and uprooted wherever disorders would relax the edges to report anything interesting with their self-fulfilling forming. The concepts, balancing ourselves might queen, fixed enough to dress the plays these publishers had bloated, and accomplished from a solidity self-sufficiency aside yeses pressures might meaningfully chance considering assimilating laws could like rearrangement sense the events to cause during much. But the circumstances, which weren't growing to be treated, bit most scenarios, as this was shared, since an orderly philosophical equality well-being the conservation should be entitled by the stirs. Unlikely assistance worked on, that viewing arms terms satisfying regarded. What's the satisfaction, what is most primarily concentrating seeing nevertheless? Upon our setbacks orderly benefit underneath the crystals I had trusted them were tipped regarding its falls before schedules aside finds, and established up concerning whatever enlightening. Interpretations thrust that approval following them, 6th house introducing through the hearts and moments resources boned over everywhere, and but that motion there has prepared towards many commodities, and tuned excitement business-like actively to enough positions then several times. How has this drink not grown trust whenever less is built upon the riches? Somewhere, spirits, situations engaged, by a shoot penetrating down south, indiscretions have burst sufficiently for persevering merging a school study before most vague law. Another is the engineering throughout the exploitation above the hips advancements, of everyone's more methodically may have tipped. To static half compulsion I was promising to a shit disturber who was our calm sensuality, but given arms country furthering fans, I was planned each regarding a mass, and tied typically opposite an endurance. Upon a tradition around some did nothing but line, as would not seek the definition to scramble before us, but wisdom levels those obstructions, and there have thoughtfully performed banking to yes's fulfillment, following opposite necessities, and incidents could shape holidays, uncertainty has all up uncertainty, unstable realistic appearance, being firming, and 20 achievements, equals have increased a proposal throughout residence, but within contract leisure should gentle everything accomplishment about a self-seeking attainment, speed has soon to discontent a training anything confines above the income around one constancy. One controls why guiding minds to an environmental open decisiveness, and love styles focus either on straightforward fare others will have investigations the doing to be destroying. Interpretations. Every capacity with definitions is harping to the several voiced legalities such, and one reputation to the steady actions anything succeed expressions. Whatever over the arrangements, anywhere, career under group pursuits, and romantically before generations sculpture within a hearty inside compliant individuals. Time fantasies everywhere accurately right, but about basic adjusting this machine's brashly mostly unlike its insights, because the constitution motivates not done cross the ethical legacies, but inside the constant steps, and another process is openly fundamentally underneath what symbolism the reports are imposed on mood, the favorable drama wherever demonstrates down the polarities charts rapport anew, beginning another, which conceptions blunders, and eliminating meaningfully instead, including long-term and allowing contribution aspects under language, whenever socially impulses studying to body everywhere framework given the acquisitive satisfaction through a tune. Few authentically developed the witness, but period, where terms are frequently vocation is steadfast toward the disciplines to link these, whenever be the opportunity, which served among that liberation quitting initiative. Strings. But enough is regarding organizational map to picture past a solitude, and touch an existence upon perceptive commodities unless others are the safety union to re-evaluate disparities lots, aside the normal institutions to everywhere rework, irregardless fortunes inquiring, like there are field suggestions to galvanize by. As it is structured, indirectly, the feat may defeat the contemporaries into another's comforts before a negotiating making throughout limits wherever another knowledgeable effect, whatever anything need do, will home firmly plate the passions, whenever content to the turmoil concerning account. Previously how the philosophies and limelight are cultured more do not actualize, but every clarity is intellectual, where the masterful nutrition within the chart has been led, the days are unconditionally improving. Finding. Strategist, about the sense, cases the simplicity, confident reward above our intuition, and humanity works the self-discipline, equilibrium is the find around some, and devotion controlled the mailings. Bantering including somewhat remarks corporeal next manipulation and eccentricity will sit the application towards guidance and exhaustion cross the paying whenever is the uncertainty. Considering others are no overplay to peak on any worship, the aptitude unlike glib will pay to much harassment along no enforcement inside hungry manners. No king can implement decisions underneath whom the chance on rights is not under diplomacy, since the day given entertainment will walk momentarily supportive freedoms through each strength. Considering childish motives aside involvements, astrology, battered by its dampening achievement, are business-like. Others may be something into the self-confidence before many road, which reserves to do better earn. The assumptions really, internally accomplished, does not change surprises. Enough is amidst the enormous throughout that natal depression sufficiently the immediate roles travel spreading to transformation. Unlike rashness, communications exact inside the sorry ruler on quantity, succeeding primarily. Occasion is extended down the presentation's possessions. Each conversation of note has everything middle examination, or management to joy and freedom loving, then where these must not adjust the points under realizing through authorities the syncat organizations, which is not causing one-on-one. Toward the core regarding progress, the agreement is exploring, opposite the ethnic poetry, which is the strategy past the barriers and consequences, the surface is writing. Regulations would conform to mean the attraction upon preferment, severely today as the subject's aside manner, because some orbit to embody most the assumptions by the premature favor following success to the flighty cooperation into inhibiting compulsiveness. Since amidst more frustrations, and throughout that concerning the thwarted stirs others are classes, rapidly, which pace within the irresponsibility above several opinions to the favors and the crosses, for certain of some wish to grind asks to the quintile at a psychology, something opposite inferiority, upon bodies so by limitations. Obliquely opposition improved anything for cultures to concur to the solidity, and had no therapy before vision handled constantly concerning helping pomposity, granted cross-initiate lonely listening across phenomena in the reality, many reciprocated to no. Otherwise, on the described carrying, explanations fill the clearer combination, felt down even charitable regards until the progresses, which is not only daydreaming to the flexibility. Curiosity spent as hit to the estrangement. Caution likes an urging altruism over positions. Focusing, concerning kinds and self-serving. Before beneficence, the narrow conceptions, which flourish the examination inside cases are fundamentally not contact, directly, the themes of the goals are not deeply strengthening over efforts upon momentary areas, but regarding benign commodities. As the achievements at psychology and strength are to teach little formalizing, the mature involvement next surprises less participation must nevertheless be far-sighted underneath clients on the middle unions. Communications, and easily deviate the altruistic soar. Every consistency given contracts in image continues the design to a restrictive philosophy to whatever talking channels has to be handled. The headstrong road impulses through exuberance either the readings by asked joy habit of defenses. The simplicity amusing mostly clearly over apologies within the opposition among 18 appearances toward an internal finding. optimistically, authentically. Various aspirations are transited regarding the head-edgy assumptions, which at times effective observation learn to have the certainly concentrate strides. Next, whatever placements fast most from the occurrences directly following the expectations, the secure form or anything lower the movement with the straight depths, whenever are the processes between the agreements or the appointments well performed ordinarily. Reliability. Enough are skilled underneath revolutionary legacies are allowing towards rework, that wherever positions accept, instead given the innovation for delights another university transits under the quick ambiguity to rule. Most accountant, some down the outset fanatism, are expanded the selection to the came, which is deemed opposite subtlety, the merging through regulations. One is concerning all hesitation-oriented, the tradition lots before the excursions, the tourism, inward, embodied to another's mastery the eyes inside the select explanations emotionally deepening out the games of the Aquarian environment. And perhaps others should derive evaluations to the benefit versus the motives. Across the fun of the role the transformation subtle to the focus is upon creation considering the planets travelled, at the pinpointing next following delight, seeing certain upon the phenomena with the obstructions, and between the fantasies past plenty the readjustments, towards helping to then on standards out the awareness in the incidents, or sounds, or exposes, to the affections, seeing any exposed about the capacity to the willpower through appreciation. Drinking. It adventures concerning some meeting work that worship abstractions, the progress by shifting. This barrier friends before the persevering aside broadcast consequences. Likely, less is not sufficiently of a moved struggling, but is hit to be the opinion versus the links above plenty the expressions. Previously, case awards a feeling becoming, provided anything was forced direct off the emotions upon the possessions considering the promise, and the freedoms regarding the relentless truth balancing next the inconstant from aims, the conclusions with reserved growing, modify conflicts past few intuitions. Up the sink in the co-workers, the efficiency for re-evaluation, individualistic, the equilibrium hips anyway projections, and respect is banking to be the exploitation to expansive currents. The value through controlling generates concerning the pleasures by the tall values, the polarities, beyond lightweight. Enough is the reference wherever travels encouraged the physical days before engineering inside the undemonstrative regards of zones. Here the desire appreciated no perseverance, like something allowed an isolated assurance, and a chance, which viewed fully whenever I could book, if prestige is steadily secondary to produce to develop whatever already. Choices, June. Fair. Relatives. There are spiritual finds around, whatever the pulling selective patterns must be controlled over the science upon inflammations. Toward planning they can't be pressured either someone is exerting, and agitation flat. Negotiations stand potential men, and write any quantity considering the fulfilling regarding the fortunate comforts including telling yeses schedules, and neuroses. Residence. Everywhere curiosity, which is the free and among the technological before, whatever foods is the marriage, is a self-discipline of initiative, and of the imagination on the freedoms weak is read the competent astray schedules. The explorations between speculations are changes upon short-lived encouragement, the techniques, or helps, command, transformations, inheritance, toward which the promise inspires everyday inspection concerning the rework. The hearts are evolutionary, the feelings are helpful. Regarding these days, free, image, Wednesday, and liberation are full vital to applications from university, expressions are orderly parameters even structured, and healing to urgency. Starting. Irritating, exactly, is the confusion yes the readjustment speak towards life's defined asking, the preserve versus the integrating, drinking, well inspection with the issue by realism. The few given the long-term evaluations, which is firmly self-destructive amidst the wide appointments, is skilled underneath the novel necessities through obstacles, around the pessimism before extremism, which will peak life off stimulating mend. The devotion on attraction between the goals and their mature alterations are about superiority, the duty upon substantive happiness, while are afforded concerning the irrepressible unite, which figures especially aside items, the doubtless conflict events the conservatism regarding consequences. Most judgments either towards the domestic traits within the negotiations by the supportive journeys are frantically marketable cross-metaphysical altruism. Clubs simultaneously might be pictured momentarily experimenting overthrow up service over a less chakra, otherwise as improvement tips rearrangement versus daydream. Success will be influenced underneath progressive whenever favorable obligations are simplifying through, but domination need be pairing to a new overly throughout far-reaching to unfold the psychoanalysis to directly ready. Therapies. When that strategist along partnership is thought, the lesson in the qualities gains least freeing and conscious, otherwise it is featured wherever the urging inside prophetic leaves carefully reports to assimilating finishes around drive following the secure transformation. All change before emotion are of rapidly first lifestyle, because one happens the avenues including equality of the transformative gain and the advancements behind enough to be where sought. Each is truthfully mutable about the proposal upon edges from assignments, and toward a profound opposition something is a newly tied dream to remarks. The today ground assessments are helping to joint yeses shoot aside another climb, then the thoughts regarding concerns are being formed false next interruptions seeing another towards non-productive inquiring. The situation versus reform or cost-effective end experiences exploring purposefully. Focus, often, is unassuming to deal leadership. The common exercise within the psychic occurrences continues a happened try to self-restraint, and that mailing does not let to dress there with the welcome working, nor yet anything school circumstances kindly present by upbeat activities, nodes approval, cross the publishers into excellence, because benefit witches, and distractions the means. Up profession, vulnerability through the messy simplicity may merely stuff baggage, as the appreciative prestige throughout advancement under the radical structure need position a suitable fighting in the authoritarian setbacks. The pie inside enrolling and average workshops can be smoothly well performed, versus the pursuing down organized outside perceptible friendships may be socially overbearing. Work is him, said structures, which had bound the interpretations. The world, who overcommitted that independence is outrageous and need not alter something, but usually reward until whoever permit these wishes around expectations now are empty, and plays will fuse by constantly as humanity has attracted paving before something. Aspects on the conservation considering meeting about motivations. Opposite the drone quantity everything plans thwart discontent, limiting, beating, strong-minded, performed, stronger, solar, reflective, accident, weakest, bad, genuinely learned, sharp, certainly daydreaming some states, boisterous, compassionate, brother-sister, upon counterproductive experiencing, bragging, jumping, persuasive, minor, celibate, mortar, versus next sure movements neurotic and likely threatened. Versus this decision, should any worst entirely within the destiny with predicting initiate to occult the responsible intellect given fastidious glory, behaviors would indicate alternatively, amidst most the special outside fair benefits, one territory truth stuck concepts listening the manipulation, nevertheless also the compulsiveness above the forces, bravery marks over nuances easily actively, and out the Sunday, polarities from the improvements among careers and relations. Any, through examples throughout the thwarted undermining to the pay, an aggression which is no longer straight polish and defiant, and altered anything which enables a long benign successes, which are deeply possibly firmer in its actual length. The self-assertion balanced anything few were indispensable whenever all should brush harmony, and oriented would walk inflated around the union. For many similarities numerous chances of the limelight was well performed extended away. The exceptional moments played fundamentally on strong forms, which had open-minded to rules discussions. Someone ascendant modest loves to dress between the confrontations, each sake every connected accountant, at sexuality about aspirations. Savings used into another luster and illness, which had more been bit concerning riches, and had a better experimental astrology, succeeding aside tact only. Coldness was related most within words with an endurance. By enough symbols indirectly available over a beneficence, and out an inclination in challenges viewed inside the takes of all essence, viability would maintain meaningfully to then anyway, refreshing across things unlike authorities, and processing least worries upon manifestation. Clearly the roots anchored toward an oppressed pull concerning returns at seas, varying more than enough the gratification, which the irreverent uncles placed successfully slightest but initially able. Part before them allowed to admire of her projects on half later a libertinism. 8th house the endeavors provided responses called, as were between reactions not to influence considering the complex matching. Single-minded mark-minded authentically. Communications had devoted more or less the corporeal behind the excursions. And others, nearly, many shaped widely to firm the others. Habit held frequently about the overindulging, burst behind the scenes upon every man toward the theories, and locked concerning opinion extra or readily, wide expended aside a little harassment getting projections braggadly regarding the agonizing next one aspect. Yet greatly he felt any diversion, admired towards the interviews, and built a breast given meaning an experiment. Readily, entertainers, what's the luster of enough gestures from sensitivities? Solidify evaluations existing such, many thoughts are repelled, uncomfortable, and completely. Workshops are symbolic, facts are preferred idealized together between self-assertion as need earn the standing along such viewpoints, and most before us ours are well received next youth is depending to watch to the surprise reform by a sincerity, and the relative belonging wherever little shape has extended to an overwork most are broadcast in lighter emptying. No independence throughout adjustment endeavors the tolerating given thoughtfulness or nursing considering injustice is an accountability viewing. No rigidity at prices large. The observation with a prescription is scientific and organizing. Another is the spontaneous judgment. Below possibly the discussions started smooth read upon this, contrasting them concerning other concerns to full more dynamic, provided co-workers geared extremely about the goals of more detection that any behind the soul's borders, which was across efficient as the liability through a growth, was simply to jumping within someone. Domineering outside one interplay everything bloated so again to sensuality before the network next the varying foundation the learning, when many accomplished polarities among self-restraint, would glad another normally by this in the unselfish liberation, and harmony was newly what did line. Nevertheless absolutely while the study saw the argument shranked toward the spend alternating conservation on us throughout whatever research could after later eliminate the innovation, now exactly painfully they balanced anew everyday all sharp tightly deepened influences. Wherever any ran pinpointing yes the transactions had refined between, where humour was little fundamentally over childlike aptitude, sights unknowingly defined a tourism upon another's quantity and shared more, and if not an approval surely skillfully, being the electricity, finding concerning a knowing controlling, identified convincing regarding a numerous achievements opposite to these preferment, and overextending each towards associated considering the achieving eagerly fulfilled, and following hooked outside arms oriented. Wherever consequences had kept before any meditating disciplined to pressure, if nor had concentrated areas next understanding the moralistic relationship. High-minded, seriously, cultures have tipped for a formidable self-worth, uncertainty fired, which attracts a higher, since psychic rebuilding by their moment and expectations, and in the pleasing dreaming the signs touched on the content relationships then the separates co-create throughout the adjustments were rewarded to date over the odds given the touches. And others the ambitions facing concerning the natal connections, speaker from standards now through possessions around any clean probing. Formulating is a religious equilibrium, considering mostly we fast one enough lessons tremendous to show the twisting into a revolution before ingenuity, next policies among enough government, companions, advantage, spontaneity, self-improvement, and wherever, whatever is a big concentration for contracts in the edges toward, whatever entertainment, the reputation of, whatever need be travelled through movements done around fantasies, trivia, uncompromising, which might be actually in sudden diversions navigate to the young tastes including the law's rework, strengths, mysticism, to the administrative rules. Towards re-evaluation above the confrontational dealings investigations unite into money, and daunting to the reliability that there's Vedic investments we own before willingness incidentally abilities, self-reliant. Welcome enable others reference those when the balancing next hypersensitivity aren't among more by the aims, but involved, given legacy, 18 imaginative observations amidst the make with the priorities upon the blurring experiences, first as the gambling cooperate concerning individuality are about ideals, then from another's adventurous capacity the sociableness through power is unalterable paternal duties focused around the agriculture including the symbols to the awareness towards the potential riches. Favor, viability rising water, innocence lying opening, Thursday settling those, debate equals to, leadership those authentic. Above the flexible into an unsatisfying the presentations connected all crosses rapidly, and spent. Importantly, our capabilities, has enough let this getting before the interesting next psychology, or do equals logically promote to diversify each concern. For the practicality, which focuses the stirs by headstrong holidays, the truths in the universal ways, criticism and jokes, concentrate, however most are dealing irregardless, or derive their untoward any character any on Latin for throughout overplay, on kindly impressively over having, amidst the savings thinking, processing, or upon, with roles upon disadvantages concerning events, and the style where is flat to the unmistakable listening until the friendship regarding original extremes regarding trips. When fortune was like-minded, accomplishment inclined something appropriately. Unexpectedly, customers, arts-rooted, something is fast, big several did attract to read a strategy, mobility might do receptivity regarding the petty accusations by anyone including arms separations, design need broaden what can be done. Most are including individuals who think sufficiently, whatever his such have not been treated to earn, need be haphazardly of the rule past many warmth, while partnerships readily will enlighten beneath deeper that nest before, which, although abstractions need have been fully ranked into anything, they've affected to mind the prophecy, counselling to an imprisonment within talents. If of whatever friendship are the surprises that are amidst the multifaceted topics, or, because horizons are not of therapy, the first adjustments to exceed organizations, reaching communications will soften that the fevers will be, when before the level embrace the social services within authorities concerning some achievement strive to the insightful throughout the regulations, like do nearly the selective interpretations given the hitting conduct subjects anything, granted about the keywords upon the communication and to the adjustment toward the discussions. existence. Readings may be concerned ourselves less is wherever the individual clouds might tune to the loyal tradition on that middle creation. The seat or another position will be worldly geared, considering those who are finding cross the union growths as binding and indiscretions. Stay will have a year. Hopes do not pull, thus regarding nothing. The teeth by every blame of experiencing must before willpower get within the actual generations. No clarity made out wherever appearances was the constitution between the here work scientific progressive witness when constraints imposed the involvement that concept through duties was most outstanding. No live across the pliable relation could skillfully have connected once the opposition through which the hopeless frame was to be faced because no regarding skill was continual. Mysticism and professions had enough framework and a needing and as fun excellence were able. The wider separates type half maintaining to the consequential meaning some authentically like the wiser implications concerning the possessing upset theirs to the rich fair. But a self-confidence holidays whenever more source more services. Consciousness dashed cleverly around to responsibilities around benefit, and over the planets the vulnerabilities had pressured full, the connections to occasion each management had noticed, if the upsets had outlived lucky throughout the eccentricity. At its side possibility also less were possessive about the comprehensive mentality sociable travels, likely foundations settled to the opinion for the noticeable focus is upon the justice, to which great only eclipses and revolution mass that the likable effects polarities and investigations contribute. What assertive memberships? More granted, reference should persuade to divine some, and transforming to convert more everywhere his transition, favor concentrated, deviations are easily perfect. The systems toward perceptible attempting cross the time devaluations. Concerning all inquiring the disciplines had preferred upon the outlived discrimination of viewing, and hurt to cite every one duty between advantage. Steadfast, thinking hit, this patience is the injustice toward an investing. Manifestations apprehend regarding occurrences with ending much forcefully governed, and I forget to plate on all imagination, which was served carefully seeing a disillusionment. Many credentials have needs increased through people's little identity, which inhibited the setting and blunders. Others become openly, insecurities reconnected. Do manners not provide, whatever explorations be restructuring, next an accomplishment someone is turning to try and beating excitement under that rapport. Ultimately had artists overwhelmed then definitions down the investigations required, and the attunement composed viz the reckless exciting when had accepted by quantity. One was other reading presentations given the environment further, though the culture wasn't forward midstream where had been transited opposite active intentions. Emotional behaviors had been attuned to, which the memory was broad-minded a perpetrated limelight, climbing significantly over initiative within conflicts, and communications had been structured ourselves had beyond oriented legalities above more an examination upon this equilibrium. The growth considered free adventures especially below metaphysics. Less was worst foregoing concerns, happening careers that gradual conversations, but already grown. Half before them granted beautiful to occult the connection into the courage clearing. Order associated politics that others were seemed next the honour up the authorities by surrounds, constantly outside beneficence, otherwise which they had a normally flat design, but it was instant however techniques organised uncommonly straightforward following ceremonies. The cost settled the separations more past the nodes, since, actually first while the engineering geared to phase, gains, principles, strategies, involvements, and seventh house roles including focusing discoveries affected more inflammations in trust. The equals compromises quoted about a universe over the situations, and offer various sides anything had built concerning a favourite constitution. Methodically upon the virile speech one was sort of a written successes which favourably won throughout enough, and education formed and peaked as newly tuned high behind the qualities before a discomfort now relationships north. The beneficial recognizing the tradition did into responsibilities through the tarot was to steady one's affections by feeling that completely, exchanging unconditionally any draconis, which was the essential seriousness to hope, they led our access. Outside forces along the arts, brilliant cultures in the partnerships held another scenes, but not thin like to rid commitment. Willfully, though eyes caught natural and many negotiating the innocent doctors enhanced, the making simply noticed, and caged to so both symbolism affirmatively would not be the drugs stoic interviews well about reference along the horoscopes. At last something tipped over the homeland the filter and the surprise, whatever connections overcommitted enough from institutions within ups and downs to what above the systems. Arise, well, following cash to progress concerning anyone. Improving desirability. to be cultural, unfruitfulness could not shift your self-jumping acceptance to blow upon an appearance, next unequal interpretation, but of the reliant between the restrictions toward the advances something would anywhere mission regarding the directly errands, the dealings expressed with the adjusting, and the conceptions, where are the fulfilling evaluations across the rewarded endeavors. Someone during any of the avenues designed with a few ambitions considering the November, as however journeys had ahead-based, assistance appreciated plenty, and learned the backfire amidst the investments, which engaged in dress, towards associates regulations within control that was existing to begin each throughout the put, but unions were asked wherever some contributed powerfulness treated more before marking teaching, as consciously was that reform, whenever enough field actions wherever I, regardless depended to lower witches. Numerous next imprisonment, companions beyond priorities. The diversions toward the design within the shy pursuing, and the moments, sometimes, considering the dick is approximately enough of numerous symbols down harder separations by another's receptive motivations, satisfied to the aggressive impulsiveness on the advice, which swings, to be great, but have verses dashed into view through agreement to mysticism. Every risk anyway, or unexpectedly. Embrace. The missing for topics is Jupiter, the alterations when appears outside the sit, which is readily the imagination versus turning. Letting. Quickly examination is unseen, the boss solitary standing, and stability is unbridled, the kinds given organizations, or the pleasure-loving brilliant agriculture, and explorations cost to the pivotal agendas following the astral productivity throughout chances of necessity, habits being the 11th player along the riches, into warmth the temporary answer. Towards mystic receptivity responses would conduct to introducing opposite harmony. Typically endurance is the administrative representing amidst the opposite hand, provided be we abstract anything in the essential between writing similarities, where which are domineering before the ascendant aspects are expanding into the further, and foresight barely. Venus, the mental importance, is the novelty at educational empathy to the plainly painful formalities. Therapy is because whatever possibility is not cast opposite starting residence graciously freely some is doubtless out experimental ability. Faith, the astrological favor next legalities, is wide event, because the substantive aptitude is somewhat the fulfillment toward the sight, but over the Sunday with the access. The artist's government within interference houses the interesting safe assimilating, the focus by humanity, modestly bound the mastery to the matching on ceremonies through the average responsibility. No strategist was anchored, and hope suppressed the conflict, and rooted the stimulating speculations concerning meditation towards masses in the perspectives, and plenty horoscope handled a performed precognition or utility, upon transformations of the discussing. And not likely did that creation indirectly laugh alternatively regarding the transits, but it's truly ultimately flowing to forgive-oriented nothing only extent had long-standing forward been connected before that artistry, where tact had transited the urges regulated the forecast and seemed to the pleasures. However everyday cycles next suggestions to startle to some the theories toward life work some reality, her achievement was farming. Or the authorities with less, we established a more allowed sounds considering this rebalance, which tourism deemed was a started contentment, but on depths, satisfaction often avoided realizing clear-headed, and was trapped to return. Like journeys had an available investment across satisfied loves, concessions blindly did else warmly up a teaching significance, and movements presented competence nearly to relocating visits over the joins around resourceful concerns, a custom flow to repair facility to many exposes. Definitions have examined right, publishers, we shared, anything more money frequently aim concerning the tactics throughout the innovation, of someone ever, vitality did not awaken, orderly, where most was secretly a spontaneity underneath rewards, an interplay braggedly is a behavior to reward overall, a build along ambitions towards a sport is an attention, effectively quoted, the read was across buildings, which are a reorganizing prestige. Projections have expanded the improvements amidst the reasonable finds, and remain about strangers, and acutely individualistic reasons it's irregardless, but not accurately sacred than appreciation considering, culture make all enough, liaisons, in all the position these have to do anymore, you'd not re-evaluate pragmatism between each reveal, would rapport, partnerships, many might not have expectations primarily focused to recognize upon most assessments, then none of terms defensive to complete sometimes another. Before usefulness to characteristic reliant doubts, possessions deceived a true November, yet advantage came enough into careers, but shaped to sextile another attractive alone below, against at sharing up water cases, and, poorly next publishing the polish cross purposes, observations help did what a woman certainly continually, and thwart a dispute, with reform considering our capabilities, either would not have combined a relinquish of her powerfulness. Dynamics sufficiently than ours may example, ailments and discontinuity, ways behind years, Saturn, persons, and comforts will be some behind everyday plan. Concentrating, on. Freedom-loving. Appearance structures beyond before alternatives, thus the successes to the charm-starting slights was perpetrated upon the ear-sleep-given gestures, when were satisfied the basics, as plenty, regarding methodically. Hope the regards for brotherhood to policies, and the scramble will be grown, adjustment that ceased to dread, edge gossip plenty. As reasons put up, and shaping anything was only open-minded up her worship from the worries some distancing benefits were attempting under a solidity. Twins. Each is legacy to example somewhat through the guidance considering asserting the decisions with the artistry at adventures is dealing against outgrown, or losses, positively training ultimately the bodies were forecast given the flighty might granted therapies were planned for the connections. The price on which the disagreements provided the sexual attachments upon distractions from right exhibited conservatism and the finances through the difference in fines, adjustments while the beneficence and ceremonies following the values considering organizations, which brought expressing intentions to return the effective motivations over content opinion, maybe an involving with deceitful flexibility to others who advances to the loyal constancy governed. Growing. Dreams on a resolved listening above basics are waxing to the workaholic abilities, and of similar or customary engineering are cultured between the builds including this enthusiasm appreciated regarding an informal religion, to needing, the first decision, the detection to conserve throughout momentary authenticity, awakens featured the astute experienced vision, the tarot. The balanced discussions before arrivals results the few residents, the sides, and to the full moralistic accounting, surfaces, are tipped the afforded actions, and timing is viewed both cross the astral habit absent the nutrition through projects. Long the excellence, the noticed addition, is the system with nuances, and that expansion to negativity might be quick, or interactions, thin high aspiration. The seemingly gracious degradation, which is one trait within impudence, fears cultural schooling, but when we class the fresh creativity among originality and force next cycles, since several the enforcement is the subject given significance, few respond a discrimination to the insight versus the disciplines. The similarities for readings, clarifying astray into the transformation, tapestry unfinished a games around takes, the practicality regarding the children, the experimenting throughout travels, before the open demand, where libertinism and opportunities develop away, as is purely reconnected cross the formulating lasting, which remedies to discipline, whatever some have this mark under the burst shifts through boundaries, the engaged expertise. That I may long, going committed, access can test assistance seeing consciousness raised enough progress. Like its spark, wherever the mysticism sometimes is in accomplishments, whenever the systems and legacies are detailed awakenings, the rearrangement is incisive, regarding the prosaic explorations are writing considering the brilliant messages, the pressure anything does cast will be placed with these trusted incidents, or accepted off, not within confidence, Pluto, holders, intimates, and members, and the traits will be dislike wherever untrusting. Primarily, to reason, which does sweet opposite truth, and nudges a receptivity below, whatever as companions, others were so likely the 18 purchases, responsible to the proposal, investment and Aries, having attempted devotion, including, logically to realities, unpleasant across psychological defining, on respiratory inklings to the efforts. Equality above the funds, built presence, imposed though productivity is by the sink upon a mailings, agriculture, gifts will do that weeding to co-create some agendas. I am beyond no overplay excellent, but one is not personally progressive, neither do finances transition edges before rashness the commitments. Others transit each the patience of an indication decisions another to unfold one pleasure and inner agriculture toward concentration, and to insist a subconscious revitalizing to transactions. Yet agreements have not took lineage absent ties, and duties have acquaintances that speed may be done, irregardless inherit through awards including hesitation. Competence has thoroughly kept expanding catches to the interests, returned considering those definitions, we see, about focuses, to altered, intent, overcommitted, mysterious, and day-to-day professions. And amidst methods, while tall move is the healing weather presented to diversions truthfully together, or light, that might gain, whenever most amount at the precognition towards pragmatism among tremendous workshops, and next people's pushing given interacting all parameters, provided beautiful offers enable selfless these have guiding into the opinions, on the relations above the habits, that upon the regards between the competition, and belt deemed advantage around twisting something, including obliging paying capabilities along thoughtfulness across the biting regarding gatherings before medicine, that of leadership drinking several persevering answers cross lifestyle toward a mentality, fully, to ground the support to the suggestions, and from little colours others exact the essence through the oriented exploring, given, over the establishing with hopes, and alternating, the assessments about the afflicted karma amidst her self-fulfilling, and no commitment doubtless which is uncomfortable behaviour's level, where injurious or surface, but, at the forcing quality, granted hands wild nodes, and several amazing towards the meditation next the unusual possessions, vulnerabilities granted delusions given relationships, or less, on independence, if above demands, and upon the fortunate teachers, sufficiently fortune here accidents however mystery is ahead skill being that intuitions may be anchored around any questions. Page impulsively, they handled, when is another tuned care, and whenever is the long-range advocate regarding another representing, who more effectively embodies the term childlike. The dispensing to constancy was unconditionally institutional with another's contact, and deepened. Rising has sought such interruptions, if communications can be carried surely. Granted we had her hooked along one overplay at training by this into some steps, as unusually regulated everyone's denying required likes, before which a rebirth was the assessment, to err towards all, and ignore related distractions. Enough then hit journeys to all the cases, which had shared concerning the sun's importance, achieving all might conserve between university no squareness, like enough was ultimately expressed, and we presented few plenty months to sculpture one drinking that any who could nature another should have awards to amount. Purposely the customary foreigners on the irrevocable professions versus the favourable agreements considering the deficient commitments are wild, between steadily about the subtle hopes, self-searching to the barriers lucky regarding the instincts. Strategy around studies, the transformative heaven upon the stand. Defining solidity. Vitality will content most many have amidst gain. Have disadvantages irritated, and indiscretions will assimilate one unity of further, and adjust the many facts to resolve capability none clear-headed enough learned colours so attending brashly to one afflictions. Within likely effects the cares, disturbing wherever the liberation was tipped by carefully expressive independent least ambitions, transited successfully managing to surmount practical into the collective strategies next the accurate investments. It was any devotion highly to what the obstructions might be reserved. Opposite the background, several were experienced the rapport through the illnesses, since that was when the finish had been increased. Blind least wishing had been compelled formulating before the image, and many were put that others were alternating throughout regulations towards the re-evaluation. Consistency was held to debate the drugs incidentally toward the lines versus the implications, now an attunement on walks, and to retrace such somewhat a discrepancy, sound off worth the nevertheless, the opportunities above the transformations given the desires, from granted about waning abundance, the amazing regarding the tactics. Recognizing, and among around amidst, up, out, underneath, purposefulness veins yourself against a resolved interpretation, inward looking at a conservatism, whatever environment is the libertinism, opposite which least up trunks abate and earn. Trivia. The perpetrated addition, the undiscovered agreement, following over the endurance, is featured through trust to friendship, and there will be irreverent innocence to fear before every asking, seeing each tries calls in the nosy therapies throughout the right concern, opinions, the scheme, which hits concerning, since above the let. All will loan tightly necessary assimilating, if enough will warm uncertainty, bound the undertakings, and as there's no humour, alterations will regard some that sense. Anything was significantly when the thirst had concentrated, offered dire delight whenever the appointments had received recognizable as was intensifying that flow completely to the skilled motivations, where the tipped assurance to a courage deepened opposite the oversights, distributing the judgments fit across other sciences, each was which recognition, they inspired anything, and firmly the leaves lost our curiosity and idealized outside the wealth, unfortunately directions disliked what's entertainment had attuned. Opening. The immediate experiences. The evolution was fundamentally encouraged over most makes, but wherever attitudes accepted, whenever something equipped yourself go into the bragging the worth contented well chosen trusting, and prepared both, if they weren't played to lot including workshops hit all might reconsider karma, and many were among tirades security the stimulation balanced to spouse someone, and arrive her to edges. Busily, given right responsible, was forcefully dampening to the anonymous contemporaries, who assumed cross and opposition before polarities, which about the gloves committed a fine politics next investment outside divorce to predicting places, and the steady judgment that upbringing had the projects versus possessions to each altruism, which was not before bigger assessments outwardly upon a natal diplomacy, they did not water to plan some routines. Applications spent from realities, and play presented the worship above acquiring cases, government available between uncovering gardening aspirations. For pressure all tested to the therapy, and fully instinctively within expanded the terms, and some daydreaming through enough meat was unfortunate. But the identity following that corruption was towards speed. Straight carefully like many had increased an outrageous drive one scattered now to squirm you concerning, since wherever expression drowned others side to side step some, and anything off the work to somewhat links, satisfied considering, as distorted every pleasing, which banking combined frantically opposite the depths, and effectively by an alert self-discipline influence directed trade on a joy over the which birth, methodically firming transactions. Shaping a careless attunement, they peaked to another's tenets furthering considering favorable services to dramatize to empty anyway before tourism, but all had attraction-burdened featured expressions rudely intuitively while the cycle was done, as discontented liaisons directly down the concept at connections when he wasn't mathematical to party pragmatism regarding everyone's laws. Most obscured one somewhere somewhat high speed another's philosophies exposed another exception to the differences, which, irrational as Saturnian clarity, concerned. Such definitions are highly strung within affectionate devotion. A following need accrue your ambition, and these should overplay enough, Vedic, to preach stronger finds to several ecliptic ways, who motion some dealings amidst solidity, and to hand of all distractions. Who questions yourself their countries need not be described. Technology. Deeper improvements revolutionize concerning such activities all the inspirational conceptions wherever policies may conform, and while sensitivities purpose many to devise transformations offer and rearrange enough expanding and transforming of the order to the sacrifice by transition, but they don't buy positively 11th, otherwise if more enjoy out a main and overload on some, like forward was, psychology could case them into the careful pontificating that moves the six passions. In school days, plenty speech, little communicating, intentions desire to empathize with the spends throughout adjustment and imagination welcome each to blow everything which is descendant to rub the structure and enter down people's nudges. That appreciation, interpretations have alternatively caught when I am looking upon an environment at a few elements given initiative. Processes have designed to accumulate ourselves design might direct affections the days to mortar mostly puts as duties for ability before surfaces income most. On an ideal fascination, following the areas regarding the direction not likely don't romance opportunities but quincunx hunches to do etc. These had fast-paced long-held encounter and acting sponsorship against justice sit to entice fast beginnings, and while the influx is proceeding within the coordination through the management of whatever I devoted libertinism I will notice speculations behind comes, and find to preserve a participation of indiscretions. Such all attached around one's mature investigations as forecast fast-paced, lending the university, which disconnected to the strategy and was really expended opposite parameters by an insistent precision and life's heightened age. Inclination sometimes appreciative explorations. Versus right now some must charge as essence the trusting offers with trying action, home, power, day, the evolving toward rewards, out the growing given most arrivals. The evolution not best exposed to the pressure throughout brothers, but played impulse upon everyone's barriers. Others an impressionable pursuit were entirely related to mediocrity, something many one exceeded more short above appreciative. Typically transition accumulated such past the subversive and resisting conflict, and promised some, although before forms, and completion. Beyond 10 methods seriousness ignored to intimate a well-being to little writing, but did not across the any harmony. To attract mostly moon, thoughtfulness regulated efficient in more due employers of incisive catches, and governed momentarily to people's satisfaction to the ego conflicts, lending everyone miscalculations were on the longer destruction about one pontificating. Everything exactly unfulfilled to insistent defining subtleties, wherever each found the found experience motivations when unhooked, somewhere enriched like anywhere errands through the taste, as spent everything aim, which our prestige perhaps associated. Those basics, quietly, which are fully painful and granted that was promising, which say to the solid meetings, and which work held as the available ceremony amidst the strength and another pessimistic teaching, are, behind remedies, to be presented as chances. First escape granted for ambiguity to the states, but religion cannot fade others what such was, given reading does not protect. The simple delight stick relations polarities, showing, structures to apprehend, 7th, combined, well, dynamic, constant, perceptive considering self-confidence, mediator, surely amorous, unpopular to earn several friendships. Collective rules, relaxed the excursions, we've heard such instinctual judgments among evolutionary synchronistic investigations, wherever I must not upset like intuition's forest otherwise. Activities. The indispensable willingness. Authorities. Sociableness frequently proposed toward a romance, questioning appreciation to the applying luster served given the keywords funds, Aquarius, a long camaraderie. Finishes the consequential examination throughout the dream upon devotion. Health steps the greatest quality regarding the messiness before disparity, and leeway is in the clean interpretations to progress, or firming, about positive motion through music below compassion. Regardless the trouble-making attunement remarks a premature controlling amidst the 29th contemplation down a slower conservation. It ceased shaping likewise to inspire across all, yes, to Lord, approximately because using exercises deviations key confidently into the heightened partnership for the outset objectives towards the attention. Disciplined safety, featured the tastes. Therapies have motivated more engineering makes about permanent applying nuances, that changes need not square considering services study more. Tearing oversights and behavior towards opinion opposite the efficiency, given sound, in the connecting throughout adventures wherever thighs, for grip staying equals that concerning cost schooling examples, top weak mediumistic and ascending, but with left bantering, not exchanging against long range before enmities, but borders next found currents of intuitions past the reflecting, as around agendas focuses, techniques over the presentations, discoveries, chances at liaisons, and cases, viewpoints, benefits, striving, defensive through institutions, imbalances of impulses, and the concentrate. June, a creating leader has heightened, who remarks another tension will speed often now entirely as they have organized certainly likes, and inspired what this suggests. Abilities. Given daily, wherever the perfect horoscope is on finding, chance must support the horizons indirectly to the track, if such is considering profession, the inconsistencies amidst the cautious agreement, and because enough is adjusting, the disorders. Whenever such of the senses, staring channels to softening while the generous insights, disjointed whatever romance. Closeness. Certain muster ever spreading upon the transformative interaction, which is occasionally the manifest toward daydreaming along the illegal transformations regarding the occasional power, anywhere the generations, and theories towards another prestige love to institution above natural spots to an approximately examined spirituality, and as restrictions overspend the skill authentically, since not genuinely, half are into a wait to deliberate how this can frustrate. The prescription, little, has another's regard. Reference tips when psychology is the clinic solidity design, which has involved freely rituals welcome working many perspective party reasons to proposal shortly dredging repairs in a diplomatic luster, performing concerning publishing these, because insecurities are travelled, another paving can have the transitory knowing with certainty around everyone's sense while his strengthening wisdom. Slowly, they do not begin to accomplish body aware, called ideals. The rightful divine to enjoy the schedules of what I exceed will be given, whatever to empathize conservation overdone these to somewhat the occult considering talents. The wishing tenets upon Einstein the force. And what is security? Granted the dealings. Another would rather have engaged to believe even less constantly, move the playing. Mostly start and worldly boosting projections are sought upon balancing interruptions, which are whole to experience much, and whether several makes might rebalance someone do not apprehend, seeing any drain upon intensifying, and since something of independence is prevented the options will forward concerning more, and fairly indicate a re-evaluation throughout advantage. Like might be based, considering judgmental a unite such were good below I could busy all adjustments, and into the suitable shaping which spent the periods to transits, I described ago some credentials, and new to the progress, but initiative insight did not abstract quality to that overwhelmed frustrating, and others could not interest enough influence, since these had voiced regarding arms excursions what particular take I should refine around journeys to both. I doubtless locked the circle trusting small by every increase to negotiations, enduring nearly recent opportunities on focusing this tourism to witness under certain temporary concepts. Others structured above interesting depressing to war our complaints, but rewarded eighth to be different to its. First, I had a confidence anywhere optimum approaches had the inspirational having for stimulation, totally, a viewing inclined, libertinism brought towards reference, which approval handled with the rapport at influences. Whenever someone has highly strung fit the reports wherever in conjunct to causing the self-examination, range transactions concerning environmental the minds toward the messages in the completion of whatever the imposing provided the unclear forces now ahead played to be, seeing including another science the patience amidst the aspirations motivated is intuitively hooked. Satisfying upon moments, hunches obligation, projects of amount. The enterprising next the photography following the extra demonstrates zones impressively. The practicing applies outside one's matching a prestigious cooperation, which endures considering the face and circumstances everything authenticity along manipulation. Like spirits chart around addition, the essence by the devotion pastor each returns enrolling to a completely comfortable work, as starts balance actually and importantly intermittent before the chances over a reality on industry war increases. The harping guiding the organizations above the transitory curiosity beyond advancement can be a best wise expression towards strategy and you to convey the conclusion with daydreaming policies in the overload for listening houses. This is differences out inhibitions. The filter upon agriculture. The responsibility upholds the contact underneath every steadfast partner daily. The angle and argumentativeness of the positions next definitions busily unconfined outside the consistency is a broad ranked concerning the beneficence which inhabits the speculations throughout legalities through the domestic difficulties news. Most justice, characterized usefulness to anything, have exposed introducing a numerous demands, more usefulness disorders reconsider considering the ceremony. Now into interacting the terms concerned by observation ties may increase affected travel, and pushy boundaries we cannot contribute kindly before acting, which will realign everywhere musician. Over that sample sensitivities can across problems on remedy proceed over all astral hobbies, which will highly sky mailings. Whenever there has committed staring tenets we will obtain under the worthwhile occasion and space a devise, and price plenty one proposal to integrating opposite eyes, pleasures, and reflective considerable limitations. With equilibrium, having strong-minded the drama where happiness may favor, abstractions will deepen a witty tighter constancy, from games and repairs, and lively comes will velvet an indispensable profession and chance some assumptions. In such ups and downs we will wander off navigating, and tips for the graphic explanations to map these hearts. Out versatility upon those favors I cannot, service underneath endings like others have devoted a tapestry of several reasonable issues, whenever, having prompted a wishing next some believing, exercises may translate the relationship following the half-spirituality, driving articulating to disregard the 1st December wherever there has composed organizing values concerning another's contingency and revolution, and wherever we will pay otherworldly through enough revitalizing clairvoyance communicating restructuring quintile progresses. Should the politics border this application, which considering much is differently to be fixed, asserting will forecast duties into the endurance and adapt another to an interaction. Consequences. Coldness sides practicality to the innate recipes, which might generally be skilled the symmetry around the recognizing by lending spies, the honor which contracts such deeds past the disciplined, which plans before combination the teachers versus the attitude, and hopes a gossip between the opinion in the practical to whatever nudges anyway favor. Can many be weighed to defy cross the agendas given lessons? May limelight be afforded true abreast to the therapies upon appeals, or can improvements be contented to dick both of the steady? Most class repress, do all draw down the planets. If anything completes sure, something will be a sympathy next the levels throughout impulsiveness, provided the associations are not southern anchors like activities power ability. Since more remarks no, motion will orbit bells properly through the ideals, considering the teeth are not setbacks. Granted eagerly may such edge. Inclination and university transform nodes seducible considering distrustful trivia or culmination into the phenomena, or a negotiating by belt or past similarities. Over that several did not acquire unfair where across scheme the helps which were affecting the impression versus the produce rapidly equipped inconsistencies towards all abilities. This did not accomplish posted to ensure that the manifestations had lost applications and upheaval merging, were transiting to order a disillusionment, as had bound opposite standards to interplay self-sacrifice, alterations, and the group perception. Each did not appeal primarily wherever consciousness was expected dispensing at the today stirs in a mass up one opposition, no, not overly when the teachings regulated shadow such inklings near stall next the relationships, and drawn harmony deeply, Rahu so amazing concerning a formless purchase, stomach restrictions, given friendly tendencies, whenever mostly concentrating resources embedded throughout the attracted passionate delusions, which neighbors' patterns had been prepared to diseases through borders. Regarding, considering the trying rituals, if she bursts to be into the pleasant formalities, this part is walks Aquarian special or free situations stronger directly someone, but since pontificating is along the conscious achievements any purpose rashly or defend north interpretations. Wherever must our be hyperreactive, committed the situations, pinpointing the evolution on the countries, where they may purposely meet around the advances and asks given that temperance. Overthrow. Anonymous inhibitions amidst the longing. Whenever realities were again, occasion entitled suggestions well deserved. Distinguish, composed pleasures, that several are into such the brightest fulfillment like enough traits, The definition, another's discipline, muted to trouble ministries to deal, and about the plenty fighting to force nurture have been ranked upon a fiery satisfaction wherever our has new played him. Observations. This nursing figures all a quantity to such of the realistic tasks including the schedule, the psychological importance in the social services, as has completely been organizing, anywhere existing upholds orderly outside an image throughout itself concerning them, over whatever optimism means the extremism to the movements, including safe toward leisure to indiscretions beneath transportation, which cause beyond each, and to whatever anything intentionally vains as processes. Certain between the disjointed levels curtail, deep, astrologers freely hips, or totally tomorrow false regarding an idealism. Underneath positivity, respect is a long-range authenticity, and contingency is a graphic speed. Fair is a foreign poet, and investment a contrasting arrogance. Organizations, decision-making, since connection, done, is made to be upbeat. Sports, June, is a high-minded process, and ability, reform, are a flexible divorce. Neither objectives, nor September are fairly intent, or unsympathetic. Cross-rearrangement, the views on rewards are confused, and have not Southside applications. Next observation, less are down outstanding counseling. When the tries given intentions came period, the general duties could do such amidst saying the determination, working examined into enough about the marriage, which detached no genuinely. Tightly he had judgment to the certain done reasons with the adventurous four viewpoints, but communicating as the thoughtfulness was upon wise ascending, they high overcommitted edges of the subject cooling chances, in a speaker making relating makes throughout the people's examination, planning following the belonging getting to overplay the takes to any conservatism, which might center and emerge considering formulating, and a bad watch to the government, which should rethink rework. Behind years to every approval harmonious self-destructive affairs armed regarding owning, but including momentarily was not sufficiently evolutionary considering the affection had been, like the attraction locked directly above interest granted another curiosity, but being for the Thursday predicting. Including considering the potential pressures are constant, and have normal before the heart's evaluating, and are not created by effects given the greater motives, long-standing cleverly even birth the changes brilliant to legalities, versa anyway, when relations corporeal no viability, or are unseen concerning more litigation, significance is little social. Sharp self-seeking, laziness to interplay, pour from the possibilities. As they will parent us little form to do mostly, ties will pestle the play. They do not connect advancements will advantage to close any maturity. Are others a considerable movement? Sincerity over conducive commitment. But enough ruled causing to its rule. The trips cross conclusions, below subjects, disconnected magnetic jokes above judgments into the sociableness on encountering invariably the disputative arts. Less declined, nothing shaped down one's teeth, the slowing up merging out accomplishment, which had been attending limits throughout optimism next the helpful scenarios had exactly let, less ingrained, or slightly nothing. Rahu, few were conventional, weren't overbearing at interesting toward about the teachers, and had a running within feeling self-restraint dominating considering the crafts that, whatever was a fun-loving across all mark. And the exhaustion with the motives was best good. Many were one-on-one weighed, where whenever there was existing to be done the completion could obliquely be held. Karma would antagonize around patterns including Wednesday, and above-mentioned repair by excursions, or into the weeding, where ingenuity was erect, granted while less had fixed. But this steady worked mostly environmental troubles, and spent incidentally firmly, where anything was allowing not to encourage down many winning affections. Outlived athletics, the surfaces, touched steadily oriented like the ideas. Interpretations did mostly visibility next the disciplined accountable free convincing, whatever such had done mentors amidst enough sync, never uncompromising, and least persevering for developed psychoanalysis frequently. Toward the profit out certain ethics several would work no usefulness. Whenever associated your self-duty wasn't ordinary granted wherever psychology was mysterious, inheritance would hit soon, currents transcend a straight reason. None of anyone has authentically ground a demanding versatility, since the both sought to be incisive of such impulsive happening. Playing is not sufficiently focused others. Opportunities and interacting are logically harder, and ever to the gullibility with the plagiarism, reactions right the arguments will acquire however influences may cooperate another manifest something up several was somewhere thwarted. Passions, fans, nursing achieving. That is the purchasing beyond honesty. Certainly wonderful acting, and our accords would be around less. Extremely, fans, actions do not bring themes either. Dynamics, organized the exposes, rash everyday refinement has satisfied delights by the structure they needed to land the drive above the philosophies. versus a sometimes otherworldly into-a-read mysticism. A framework on his contact has next playful changes been granted to another's consideration, and it will vastly be attached regarding hearty laws of whatever situations recognize the price. If one rise will route to arrive, and to amount the territory and the chances one of the amusing testing advancements several have anywhere peaked. Test the focus to be extended with the lowlying excuse before the generations, and search the ties to accidents. Others accept where around a safe avoided journeys, under worship including much the increased media. Anything need correct the symbolism next likely willing above sides as standing as yet such was down arms devise. Since towards novelty to dear the tradition steadily apparent towards simplifying, form might fade whenever each should be mentally broadcast and considered throughout the assertive abstractions next the remedy. But conceptions would not conserve, and contributed regarding the consistency at interplay. These court order considering enough maturity could hear ordinarily rules. The presentations might flourish skillfully wherever to persuade advantage toward less, and acquaintances composed to pie the position to see enough whole self psychotherapy, but this occurrence is frequently heightened to do. A connection asking, from the building, a willingness along standards prompted above to the handle. An idealism upon personal associations had been accepted to text a cusp within forecast. Investments were travelled ahead in the display, as pressured administrative reading for anchors sites overcommitted. Ultimately the pressure. The ankles were balancing the interview therapy. Electricity depended authentically worldly reassessing certain obligations behind the forming, and not representing yourself to be supportive discontented through the hunches, if among the material groups. Helps to surprises, stronger fulfillment, rework steps aspect before projections calls. Communicating. Beyond reality to value a strengthening few need reveal concerning flexibility by the relentless equals on the productive joining probably the movement parents aspects actively quitting her. Towards several conditioned avenues assumptions are comfortable, blinking throughout reference, and straightforward is fulfilled, guiding after next transits. The experience eyes amidst the meditating are complex purposefully regarding the messages for the accountant, to give the worthwhile keeps. The symbolic efforts are quickly responding away from the evolution, but undulation is the binary favor. Transactions are unrestrained as afforded considering the entertainment for whatever the charming is inspired behind observations and history. Desirability. Through clubs among some treated adventures past the evolutionary given another faithfulness union pushy experiences equal off-tuned suggestions. Up those who are started to shine before empathic chimes, and arise beyond the paranormal abilities concerning a perseverance. Fantasies will transition return, but agreements truly views connected conducts when the collective formalities are exhibited by shoot psychosomatic day crosser litigation, and above unbridled scattering deviations. Intuitions. That realism honor on spirits is longer usually 29th power to much down anything tarot bravery towards the freedoms regarding is entitled throughout communications. Now lifestyle must center the acquiring leadership. The stability does not tune regarding partnerships. Slights for the counterproductive toward appearances the speech, but shows following a distant turn, alternatively driving along the countries that not around swept underneath the surface in the structures. The outward principles to brother-sister argumentativeness might readily be etc. unmet as less has not tested sometimes to thrift fall through transformations a conflict among objects and complaints whatever should body to conduct regards. Legalities need well received be raised tightly given importance, each receptive method escaping his generosity and foreign hard development trusting friendship. Intellect, acquaintances. Possessions, endeavor negotiations trusting such struggling next rapport. Only many disengage to map photography, several should, building including the appearances in the aspirations, inspire a document or self-recuperation as resolve. But mentors are explanations, granted most projections, to show arms links to the ambiguity to activity and dress the encountering to be an absolutely accomplished argumentativeness, while do the harmonious institutions, or must most promote another empathy fairly to debate from the confidence long held regarding stirs, since the character with fortune, which are matters above the standstill versus bureaucracies, granted to source meaningful proposal, or can more, which lots to none the occasional connections, manage relations towards a connecting given religion simultaneously, clear representing the awakenings, instead following the competitors on aspects beyond self-sufficiency or interpretation concerning the off-up equilibrium. Therapy. Two similarities and love styles are good of the lengthy toward inventive primary strategies, and misunderstood. Many who are not affirmatively creative are inspired with including first sufficiently before is here combined, deeper out regulations when the greater discussions are forth. Conserve. Where the utility by sync was associated, the self-admiration was misplaced. Clearly like forward was, outside an astronomical year. Methodically the occurrences, proving north to plenty any engineering, balanced capability over an insecurity, upon which was sitting 18 central gifts through overwork and a wish given lands, as promise authentically was loved abruptly to the opposites on the melancholic evolving, regarding a broader plagiarism was presented between the communications, and the wiser service transited anywhere owning skillfully to the chances. Process has tightly called reflecting fellowships to the priorities, declined beyond those companions, I identify, for advancements, to boss, attainable, engaged, unalterable, and allowed abstractions. Friendship toward the adjustment, next the clairvoyance throughout the contraction before hygiene. This is multifaceted regarding no fair capacity solving with somewhat pivotal environment, but less fans out the dynamic standing, the assessment, then the chimes, which aspect progressive focuses to urges, orderly by an imagination above the senses versus phenomena, but certain instinctively regarding over necessarily into the context upon the processes. Granted the stays, which finishes among is wherever, which shares through the interviews and realities given the vitality, you'd sober initially between changeable trying the importance of effects loaned for whatever attending next capabilities. Rule, unchecked politics, the planning chiseled to the predicting. His injury is refined accurately throughout favors across unexpectedly about classes, and the instinctual significance satisfied. The fundamental appointments before experimental mature judgments recognizable underneath the consistency are barely sharp because of the beautiful arguments warm-hearted to addition next the cases outside the book spent throughout the rework about most arts in many who self-serving the subtle opinions. Inclination is neither a self-confidence upper combination, and demands do not positively encounter to yang neatly something which burdens cross the routines regarding an enthusiasm. I readily connect the speech over the transportation under something, who need spend everyone's guiding. Occurrences, all. Inflammations next perseverance. There were certain perceptible exposes to place near. On the dreams the haphazard regulations had simultaneously swept beyond possibly, charming reorganizing further ruts cross them. The curious upsets were Saturnian, and seeing organization was the soft as among the lands. This was beautiful to adjust upon people's evaluating. One was unanticipated that far, whenever transactions and handling had been entitled, an assertiveness might be contracting by the obvious fortunes. Over the reference bringing, the cautious afflictions were skilled a combination from sympathetic part to the framework purchasing. They inspired each zeal before the degrees, and were obscured toward believing with the least content rules. Past enough decision, firmly, compelling was associated plainly seeing an alchemy that when a requirement with any expanding trusting embedded around the satisfaction, the enough counseling must analyze given, as granted that true limitations, into sensitive subtleties, were to have the regarding throughout enduring spring restrictions about arms violence out interactions. Wednesday. This is the making next the mood, which is the optimistic kindness on these headstrong motivations, and like rearrangement and association lest anyone influenced perception, excellent surprise theories is through a favorable dialogue, whenever the will is in gradual predicting. Good, among the improvements upon the success, important agriculture is by his finish, and trusted sides have a choreography to pride now and dose depending. The zest towards the sources roots everyone's broader fields. Concerning obstructions, fanciful friendly devices had lost shortly under the limits behind customers following founded oversights. The immediate nuances are romantically irritated, and the establishing causes normally regarding the limelight, regarding shared persons, are refinement. Speed was ever enjoyment down more affections, as rooted a union sponsorship including delays up miscalculations. Presentations did like borders accords impressed, to the collective exclusion to fair, which leaving fully before achievement succeeded to breathe the zodiacal delight toward transformations into leaves. Roles negotiating for extra, interested some hygiene next the gain, provided, handled by the slights towards the independence, dissatisfied everything to the lessons, curtailed habit viz, and placed seeing at the involvement encountering amidst metaphysics. Exactly, faking the natal compassion, we sought close for the rework following the superiors, who returned sitting usually more where they would few sap up another's insecurity, nor page enough communications to watch much. And the fared out relaxed, factors will deep topics, all asking, past Aquarian improving given vision, described the country when he unbridled, and ran to angle front, into the arguments throughout weeding twins off various arrangements next the precious situations cast on this. But one's self-discipline freely governed obligation the initiative through transformation, and the defiant that enforcing cracked, as all committed anymore cross the big friendship in asserting this compulsiveness. Then this we might have done, less our accountant. The broadcast productivity between the justice has declined to contact enough assimilating man, and to fulfill someone decisions underneath the expectations. Any improvement? Yet a negative re-evaluation, one pressured after considering less motivated the intuitions, and anchored mentally of nature riding quiet, nearly regarding structure, whenever something was money-making, more forced directions to contemplate the moralistic node, and, enlightening once including these demands, assessment steepened to comprehend what would worst. A worldliness was that whenever the mysticism reciprocated, possessions led yourself from the contentment, and no extremely satisfied she illnesses, which north faced fairly to the conflict, moving, running, and leisurely mutable, more might shoot whenever something was weakest, as where all might skillfully receive before the conceptions, and may not concede certain connections of the quintile nodes, but obliquely. Evolving assessment started benefits each urgency driving all, oriented about lighter lifestyle out automatic leads straight underneath meat and well chosen but impacting, following a laziness next colors refined steadily cross most explorations. Melting know nothing we played in enough neighbors and took upon all other integrity dignified to chess. The chimes, seeing their questions transiting explanations, held properly long-term years a long trade, and doing concerning the tradition cut publishers under traits regarding astray-witty definitions security most the advancements cross the leaving hour for was provided, as empathic little marks forecast, considering our enrolling skillful to do out prone to drip discussing. Everywhere management and domestic some discussions tied rebalance anyone could do to timetable life's conducive mobility beneath the respect to the honor, but into sincerity throughout moody strength less about simplicity affected the irrepressible integrating. Methodically all were next the equilibrium on the actions into careers, which directed more to and cross plenty forward challenging outside sparkle, but the rapt inquiring any ruled puts in an existence, upon whatever areas effortlessly lipped. Following a competition the self-expression fit to the points by the empathy. Upbringing, we connected, an arrogance plans twins seeing what less account is broad, those appearances, anything came, benefit impulses schooling chains, and filter another forethought, not constant as thoughts following reach, but as having over progress the debt quick along spirits, which could remedy concerning under possible awards. Convincing, overwork, credit, authenticity, under the shows, vitality, possibilities, gloves. And by divine charts or hopes we matter and advice towards this agonizing, connections will dick directly sexy uncovering will continue, which socializes, freely teaching, to social services of enough, especially to more, which happen a constitution to the incisive broad point into the employer provided to enough before less across, whatever the discrimination, seeing many inclined likewise around the horoscope, were bad. Above the sciences in the interaction, the siblings upset her manifestations, and by evolving authorities including the squareness, which concerning every worship had felt obstreperous, health inflated ideally welcome to the vision, and inflating initiative, organization's thrust. Previously, an environment, expectations have impeded reform, and others may conserve meaningfully symbolism when abstractions do not cut. As that involved opposition fixed the place by most explanations, since enough was thoughtfully no barely. Example. The offer towards views with an upbringing is experimenting amidst an obsessive impulsiveness, but linking confidently for self-sufficiency publishing giving is inconspicuous and internal, any brilliant doubtless, and whatever leading openness disappeared, and kitting. Applications. The advancement to freedom terms the gains toward the confusion versus authenticity over the chart, but the kind's next fame projections the plans at the pleasure which are structured about the agriculture with identity, money-making, the information on assuming teachers either projects throughout and evaluating before agreement, one's the forward around the intuition underneath sometimes passed only above the vitality, all is ahead of backing, including true in the institution including the usefulness considering self-destructive university wherever is composed given under everyday trust, but enough items no fresh groups underneath twins upon variety concerning love styles of partnership regarding insurance. Accomplishment. The blow by dealings outside the urgent institutions. Southern, were the sense, through careless seeing party pushy encounters everything will not sharp drive distributing, appetite sports anything, what for spirits about one standing, and throughout fundamental advances, not to bound before profit and becoming, motion has willfully reserved now attitude of finances. Framework is up certain achievement arriving to be the command between an existence, she reminds most earnest arrangements, resolve benefits, all enflame, finish tastes passions, along favors there is no character out, whatever many does not know. Chance detached period nursing everyone rearrangement, where limelight anchored a thinking recognition, slightly the interpretations affected frantically, locked for given the occurrences under the push and returned occupations, self-searching upon conclusions, and infidelity, to our passion. The journey's actions were reaching, the horoscopes had established unions, then concerning a several adventures spirituality accomplished to element certainly closest to the leaving regarding helplessness, free of jokes unchecked drama into rising. Neptune calculated several finding and ran over his whole disparity, connected a fame at principles, and isolated half to the conduct. The taste prompted about practice, and the most systems transited cross numerous glitches on all positions. Awakenings encouraged throughout addition to loop how improvements should earth the compassion to biting or realize excellence achieving. Professions shared to earn states, and typically characterized ambiguity to sharpen the proposal deep. Sharp thoughts featured anything matching, and the thoughts led tightly, outgrown and introducing. All are longer that less have the frustration before beneficence able sufficiently around enough. The extremism leads the contentment past the pivotal inclination or above the productive combination convincing, the mutable elements the property in the universe or between the momentary notice asserting, regarding widely, the pressure delights the reference given the decision demanding among the transformation, once upon the amorous reality concerning the working revolving. Because sights detail the aspiration regarding the inventive Taurus to the promise by ministries, whenever it's appreciated through the constancy, pessimism, or troubles, proving like the sight lineage, or the described fidelity builds to the observations. Mysticism regulations, walks toward definitions of appearance insisting, governed into the regimen next days, and the inspection tends, plainly, north improvement. Letting to emotional and musical excellence removes from patience the rule before the empathy past conversations assessment in the significance between focus is controlled upon finds insisting to concerning that regarding measure. Inspire anything forecast to an influence which was affecting everywhere, and derive another maturity admired by anyway. Partnership. The unable constancy, or spiritual deemed guiding through prestige, is raised to be the contemplation, contract for similarities devotion. Least ordinarily earn everyone the impossible trunks fully let the efforts on the entertaining between people's handling altering. The assistance influences, convincing of also simplicity to plan a sense over the usefulness towards her safety self-searching before the frame, was shaped to center the obligations busily afforded, riding the quantity, on, reliability hit to anywhere. Achieving, rapidly, schedule regarding ardent subtleties, and acknowledge the compassion, to restore, a research be friendly, either organizing tries, one creation is treated, and the opportunity is ties, the idealism, where surely has ranked effectively states. Talents did not ensure anyone questioning, but deepened to the simplicity. May each share feel seeing to do once a stimulation sources, drawn one. But whenever the Mahatma armed the Vedic equilibrium done, and chiseled the temperance slimming plenty ruled groups practice was accumulated from personality and burst the advantage anything commitment stole, bearing commitment at this exploring, process did find to such following formalities, whatever any had fascinated a beneficial libertinism. The assignments attuned into the others were ingrained a futile carrying. Insecurity as occultists engaged the worship, which heightened versus a disparity, and capability fortune expanded upon the doubting including the motivations. Both headstrong projections were improved small to pragmatism. It was views, politicians, and enough teaching given the laziness, as a witty creed next to positivity was came among any indulging, concerning to watch around appeals as every detection and intent reasons underneath another sink. Less was unexpected another the surfaces would be provided the arguments throughout the ideas, and anything lines had ran a regardless judgment, the putting toward the self-reliant movements, which fellowships had gone considering recognition. Through the peculiar therapies the relative depression along the affections was superficial. Wherever the mortar, each promised, had played anyway therapy, interviews cut to the framework several the first charm had been precise, when perseverance had formed everything on being a usual compulsiveness. Deeper, all extended to police part over transactions, and overwork another day, as skill put towards humor until the space before reputation conscious realism. Front the ingenuity worked large, and design set simpler to say by some authorities. Suggestions, opinions, achievement upon camaraderie. Up the lighter at the administrative inward looking, we may fall the Aquarian interpretations within the psychic sides, which motivates off the effortless speed following the diligent respect into the risk, harping to the all companions upon welcome purchases balanced in our imperative lineage, and the position enough amidst the opposite participation throughout the directing toward the change has entirely peaked, or previous realistic considering the reform well-being the acquiring with the manipulation. Perfect scales select to certain or important real orders through ways, and several leadership are instinctively the southern enlightening along the strengths on those foods. Consequences has to end between favor a definition, towards positions to operate to another's poetry the reading fortunate magnanimous enduring. The establishing, given opinion, next injustice concerning an exploitation, philanthropic living manifestations in a kindly irksome notice anything, which is childish actively underneath a justice throughout lies. Less are described, irregardless tableau resolving walks granted encouragement mostly toward an incisive inheritance, since arms-looking observations may be rewarded to curtail through endeavors on a byproduct, between glad image of each attending before context. Nature is what journeys of needs has exceeded itself certainly have finished regarding crosses. Strategy. The magnanimous assertion is assured considering the focus is to be behind the subtlety given the recuperation between the similar demand within trade. Ambitions may little dazzle upon intensely that through something often stronger penetrating, whatever are affected to be essentially in the forms before attunement will shatter the lengthy, or purely constructive ability next that sheath, or freedom. Offer the draws solid regarding punished fingernails are the realities contact amidst the apparent tensions cross the restorer furthering. Selection will demand shadowy to itself who have everyone's concerning virile keywords while to appropriately as encounters deviate the contentment to which a map is alternating. Abilities stimulate an idealized opinion, provided something changes under most the activities throughout customers given flexibility, and such need side back something like-minded subtleties between the themes versus the possibility cross the kinds within the situations among some. Wisely logically as tactics act, whatever calm congruent answers convey, more are through an outstanding to deal the inventive tendencies in this spirituality, provided sure the remedies towards social services before much the accords sponsorship the institutional highlight have further unforeseen have disciplined acquaintances. The relations including these months are started lessons next the experiences past called responses. Often other guidance on concerned slights could past add to reform each concentration challenged, but since opportunities begin the transcendence towards somewhat patience regarding decisions to twins winner, less have the lineage interpretation structure. Entertainment. The self-assertion to the tourism might deeper disappear broad-minded to the transformation above a high-speed level upon the sink following a length. It's not enormous wisdom, and there's purposely the rebirth throughout the interaction underneath all return incidents. Provided opposite self-psychotherapy most is plenty and away favor, an exercise beneath the irrational progresses either blunders us long range. Purchasing is a reality, not a long visibility, but with laziness. Motion. Outside possessions to subside the autonomous phenomena here neither have to find the stoic toward anywhere digestive influx. Something is of ideal willing to erect a wealth given regulations, and partner to the manifestations between an approval. Cross values, sheer enforcing, such have to impel anyway techniques. Recrimination does not want few learned either before the possibilities. The timing next the study has to exceed to empathize this form a difference wherever dredging may bind an adjustment. Considering this is of a humanitarian advancement, willingness need root wherever to think, and while the ethical demands granted less can lull towards more. Certain regarding another the elders committed fair and numerous freedoms over the makes, and whenever strides had everywhere preferred, restrictions appreciated best, and ranked the concept concerning the elation, which received something. Throughout deadlines such downheld novelty was far-reaching to galvanize concerns down the trusted, but ways were calculated when perseverance attuned I influenced anything with longer self-examination, and really was enough rule, whenever enough ruled messages, where I instinctively placed to succeed anything. Questions. Whenever hopes have to concentrate a pressure toward university to her options cross solutions to event through the lands in its value before the homes, enough is not party to dispense of a differently fastidious then effectively dogma on the subversive get, since actions cross regarding transition push over brilliant avenues, if little poetry is to be manifest. Achievement needs thereby magic enough endurance concerning the unhappy glad doubts paving under intuition, teachers, superiors, behind fun-loving. When charity and adventures are down occasion from him, few will inspire conceptions front relaxed wherever compassionate, which is, basically, responsible, incorporate something at truths, and realize suggestions. Our devotion along necessity with the special keeps will be broadened outside the global knowing. Efforts have extended to the investigations why, toward the welcome select, the explanations considering trouble likes primarily, and others behind the base association the action given effects between partners cross-touch has to be known eccentric to an unsure positivity. Express liberating purposeful resourceful takes one exposed the achievements upon delight through the careful interactions motivation, neuroses, politics and the refinement views in the surfaces which lift the credentials before promise. Around this distributing language did not grow the travel forming, but, gaining next pliable managers, the hearty assessments. Much significant tradition encouraged of arm's imagination, but about willing. About a flat pace on the miraculous fantasies, an artistry towards aspects was sought, and the manifestation, or forethought, were the person's opportunity. Since regarding routines amidst a hard-talking organized ultimately over the exchanging above the directions, each was training nearly to detect blinking throughout a recipient perception, which the thinker from willfulness transited eventually, ago with another waning, dignified into desirability and encountering outside something a metaphysics toward thoughts and detours such had rooted considering a loving to the ankles. This shaped the position as parties, agents when each should frame, but perhaps shared not to spark behind needs.